Despite every advance in modern archaeology and forensic technology, some of history's greatest cold cases remain wide open. We are faced with entire civilizations that vanished without a trace, written languages that the world's best cryptographers cannot crack, and artifacts whose purpose and origin defy all known context. Each new discovery seems only to deepen the enigma. The investigators of the past, historians and archaeologists, are left sifting through contaminated evidence and following cold trails. The greatest mysteries of the ancient world remain a public record of our profound ignorance. High in the mist-shrouded mountains of northern Luzon, in the Philippines, lies the small town of Sagada, a place where the boundary between life and death seems to dissolve into the clouds. Here, on the sheer limestone cliffs of Echo Valley, hundreds of wooden coffins cling to the rock face, hanging silently above the abyss. These are the hanging tombs of Sagada, one of the most haunting and mysterious burial traditions on Earth. A ritual that defies logic, gravity, and time itself. For more than 2,000 years, the indigenous Igorot people of the Cordillera region have followed this extraordinary way of honoring their dead. Unlike most cultures that bury their deceased beneath the soil, the Igorot chose to lift them toward the sky, believing that the higher the body, the closer the soul comes to heaven and to the spirits of their ancestors. To them, death was not the end, but the continuation of a journey, a return to the world above. Each coffin was carefully carved by hand from a single piece of hardwood, often by the person who would one day occupy it. The Igorot crafted their coffins small, only just large enough for a human body curled into the fetal position. The dead were placed sitting or in a crouched pose, symbolizing their rebirth into the spiritual realm, mirroring the position of a child in the womb. Once sealed, the coffin was lifted onto the cliff face, sometimes hundreds of feet above the ground, and fastened to the limestone using wooden stakes and rattan ropes. It is this act, this choice of where and how the coffins are placed, that has become one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. If you could choose your final resting place, would you want to be buried beneath the earth or suspended high above the cliffs like the people of Sagada? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Among the many unusual burial customs in the world, the placement of Sagada's hanging tombs remains a riddle that continues to puzzle archaeologists and anthropologists alike. The cliffs where the Igorot people place their coffins are not only steep, but almost completely vertical, rising tens of meters above the valley floor and towering over the misty landscape of Echo Valley. To reach them, one must follow narrow, slippery mountain paths that wind through dense forests and sharp ravines. Even with modern climbing gear, approaching these coffins is perilous, let alone centuries ago, when the ancients had nothing but rattan ropes, wooden stakes, and faith. The question endures: how did their ancestors manage to hang such heavy wooden coffins on those sheer cliffs? With no machines, no metal pulleys, they still achieved precise placement so stable that many coffins have remained in place for hundreds of years. Archaeologists have offered various theories. Some suggest that the first coffins were placed near the base of the cliff, and over generations descendants continued adding new ones higher and higher, gradually forming a vertical cemetery in the sky. Others believe that temporary bamboo scaffolds or ladders were erected and later removed after the rituals were completed. Yet none of these explanations fully account for how the Igorot chose those nearly inaccessible spots, places where only birds seem able to reach. While scientists seek answers through measurements and logic, the people of Sagada have their own spiritual explanation. To them, the cliffs are not merely resting places, but gateways between the world of the living and the realm of spirits. They believe that the higher the coffin, the easier it is for wind and clouds to carry the soul to heaven, guiding it back to the ancestors. The wind that sweeps through the valley, the calls of birds, and the echoes off the stone together form a farewell hymn for the departed. In Igorot belief, this is the final cleansing ritual, allowing the soul to leave the mortal world unburdened. Standing at the foot of Echo Valley and looking up, you can see rows of wooden coffins hanging on the cliffs, weathered by time, yet still steadfast in the air. The Igorot people believe that the cliffs amplify the voices of the dead, creating echoes, the very sound that gave the valley its name. Those echoes are seen as a sacred bridge between the living and their ancestors, where prayers from below can still reach the resting souls above. Researchers have begun to suspect that ancient Igorot shamans may have chosen each site according to geomantic or spiritual principles, similar to how other ancient cultures use the landscape in alignment with celestial patterns. Some cliffs receive sunlight at specific times of the day, while others face valleys or rivers that were considered sacred. Could the locations of the hanging tombs be connected to a larger sacred geography invisible to us now? Geologists note that many of the cliffs are made of cast limestone, which erodes easily, creating natural ledges and crevices. Perhaps the Igorot saw these natural formations as signs from the spirits, invitations to place their dead where the rock opened toward the sky. The result is a haunting harmony between human intention and the living mountain itself, an architecture of faith sculpted not on the ground, but in the air. What makes this even more astonishing is how long these coffins have survived. Some are estimated to be more than 400 years old, yet still cling stubbornly to the cliffs. The Igorot built them from apayao wood, known for its density and resistance to rot, and fastened them with ropes made from rattan vine, a natural fiber that, despite exposure to centuries of wind and rain, has held strong. But nature is reclaiming its due. Many of the coffins have fallen or decayed. Some now lie broken at the base of the cliffs, their contents exposed. For the locals, this is not a tragedy. It is part of the cycle of nature. The dead return to the earth, they say, but only after touching the sky. In Sagada's philosophy, death is not the end, but a reunion. Hanging the coffin high ensures that the soul joins its ancestors, not trapped underground, but free to roam the winds. Families often participate in the ceremony, singing ancient chants, burning incense, and smearing chicken blood on the coffin, a symbol of purification and safe passage. Once the coffin is lifted into its place, it is never touched again. No one cleans it, repairs it, or dares to move it. To disturb it would be to interrupt the journey of the spirit, an act of grave disrespect. This quiet reverence is what keeps the hanging tombs of Sagada untouched by time and by greed. Today, Sagada stands as a spiritual landmark, attracting travelers and scholars alike. The hanging tombs carved into the cliffs of Echo Valley remain a mystery. No one knows exactly when or how this ancient custom began. Some believe it's over 2,000 years old, linking the Igorot to other ancient cliff burial cultures. Yet Sagada's tombs are uniquely serene symbols of humility and unity with nature. The mountains serve as temples, the cliffs as altars, and the wind as an eternal hymn. Gazing upon them evokes both awe and reverence, a haunting reminder of humanity's fragile connection to the divine. Nestled in the hills of the Peloponnese Mycenae, stands as one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites of the ancient world, a place where myth, gold, and mystery intertwine. Once the seat of mighty kings and the heart of a civilization that dominated the Aegean between 1600 and 1100 BCE, Mycenae was known to the ancients as the city rich in gold. Its walls, tombs, and treasures spoke of immense power, yet its sudden collapse remains one of the greatest enigmas in human history. What do you think caused the fall of Mycenae? War, nature, or something even stranger? Share your theory in the comments below. At its peak, Mycenae was the center of a flourishing Bronze Age civilization, a network of palaces, trade routes, and fortified cities spanning Greece and beyond. The Mycenaeans were master builders, seafarers, and warriors. Their citadel, perched upon a rocky hill, was both a fortress and a palace complex. The discovery of gold burial masks, jewelry, and weapons in the royal tombs revealed a society that valued wealth, artistry, and divine power. The most famous of these is the so-called Mask of Agamemnon, found by archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann in 1876, a masterpiece of hammered gold, whose serene expression still haunts those who gaze upon it. Although later analysis proved it predated the mythical Trojan War by centuries, it confirmed that Mycenae was indeed a realm of immense sophistication, one that inspired legends. The Homeric epics Iliad and Odyssey immortalized its kings as heroes, blessed by the gods and cursed by their own ambition. The entrance to the citadel, the Lion Gate, remains one of the most iconic monuments of the ancient world. Two colossal lionesses, carved in relief, guard the triangular lintel above the gate, symbolizing royal power. The gateway itself is constructed from massive blocks of limestone, each weighing up to 20 tons. The Mycenaeans built these fortifications using what archaeologists now call Cyclopean masonry, enormous stones fitted so perfectly that no mortar was needed. Later, Greeks, astonished by their scale, believed they were constructed by the Cyclopes, the one-eyed giants of myth. Even today, the precision of these walls remains impressive. Engineers and archaeologists still debate how such structures were moved and aligned using Bronze Age technology. Did the builders employ earth ramps, wooden cranes, or something more advanced, perhaps a lost engineering technique? South of the citadel lies the treasury of Atreus, a monumental tomb shaped like a giant beehive or tholos. Its circular chamber, nearly 14 meters high and 14.5 meters wide, was the largest domed structure in the world for over a millennium, until the Pantheon in Rome. Each stone block was carefully cut and laid in concentric rings, narrowing toward the top, creating a perfect corbelled dome without mortar. The entrance passage, or dromos, lined with colossal stones, leads into this echoing chamber, a marvel of symmetry and stability. No other civilization of that era built anything comparable. How Mycenaean architects achieved such precision without metal scaffolding, advanced geometry, or modern surveying tools remains one of their many technical mysteries. Mycenae did not exist in isolation. Cities such as Tiryns, Pylos, and Thebes shared the same palace architecture and sophisticated administrative systems. The Mycenaeans used Linear B script to record taxes, goods, and military supplies. Their trade networks reached Egypt, Anatolia, and the Levant, forming a proto-empire that was both militarily powerful and culturally radiant across the Mediterranean. Around 1200 BCE, a catastrophic event struck, and within a short time, the golden city of Mycenae and the entire power system of the Aegean world collapsed completely. The palaces that once gleamed with bronze and gold were reduced to ashes. The forges, storerooms, and administrative chambers fell silent, as if an unseen hand had erased an entire civilization overnight. Excavations reveal layers of blackened soil, burnt beams, shattered pottery, and soot-covered walls. Yet the strangest detail remains: very few human remains have been found. There were no signs of mass slaughter, no battlefields soaked in blood. Instead, the traces suggest a swift and organized evacuation, as though the people had foreseen the approaching catastrophe. Archaeologists and historians have long debated the cause. Some believe Mycenae was attacked by foreign invaders, perhaps the Sea Peoples, a mysterious group of seafaring warriors who ravaged Egypt, Anatolia, and Syria during the same period. Egyptian inscriptions describe them as those who came from the sea, bringing fire and destruction to every shore. Could Mycenae have been among their victims? Yet the evidence suggests signs of internal turmoil rather than invasion. There was looting, yes, but no large-scale warfare. Many structures appear to have been destroyed from within, as if the inhabitants themselves rose up against their rulers. Another theory blames natural forces. Greece lies in a highly seismic zone, and a massive earthquake could have fractured the Cyclopean walls and ignited fires throughout the citadel. Layers of ash and rubble support this hypothesis. But could a single earthquake truly erase the entire Mycenaean civilization? Scholars argue that it could not, unless it struck at a moment when society was already weakened, when trade had stalled, famine spread, and the people grew restless. Evidence of economic decline and social unrest strengthens this view. As the empire grew wealthier, inequality deepened. The nobility lived in opulence, while farmers bore heavy taxes and lost their land. The collapse of international trade networks, possibly linked to the Trojan War or political upheaval in Anatolia, crippled Mycenae's food-dependent economy. Inside palace storerooms, archaeologists found signs of deliberate burning, not the work of invading armies, but likely acts of revenge by commoners against the elite. Modern scholars now believe that no single factor can explain the fall. Instead, Mycenae suffered a systemic collapse, a simultaneous breakdown of warfare, natural disasters, economic failure, and internal rebellion. The civilization had become too dependent on its centralized networks of supply and administration. When one link broke, the entire structure crumbled. As the Golden City went up in flames, not only did its stone and gold turn to dust, but so too did an entire era when humankind once believed itself protected by the gods, yet ultimately stood powerless before the unforgiving forces of time and nature. After the fall, Greece entered what historians call the Dark Ages 1100–800 BCE. Writing disappeared. Monumental architecture ceased. Population declined sharply. Yet echoes of Mycenae survived in oral traditions that would later be woven into Homer's epics. Agamemnon, Achilles, and Odysseus were not mere fiction, but fading memories of a real world that once gleamed with bronze and gold. When later Greeks rediscovered the ruins, they could not believe ordinary humans had built them. They spoke of giants and gods, of curses and divine punishment myths born from the awe inspired by crumbling Cyclopean walls. To this day, Mycenae remains both a triumph of human ingenuity and a haunting mystery. Why did such a powerful civilization vanish almost overnight? Was it destroyed by enemies or undone by its own ambition? And perhaps the most chilling question, could a similar collapse happen again in our own interconnected world? Archaeologists continue to uncover clues, fragments of pottery, bones, and tablets, but the full truth lies buried beneath layers of time and myth. Despite its fall, Mycenae's influence never faded. Its art, architecture, and myths shaped classical Greece, and through it, Western civilization. The Lion Gate still stands, defying millennia of wind and war. The Tholos tombs remain intact, a testament to ancient engineering genius. Every year, thousands of visitors walk among its ruins, feeling the same wonder and unease that scholars have felt for centuries. Mycenae teaches us a timeless lesson that even the greatest civilizations are fragile. Beneath the gold and glory lies the truth of all human empires. They rise, they flourish, and they fall often without warning. In the fading light of the Argolid Hills, as the sun sets behind the Cyclopean walls, one can almost hear the echoes of the Mycenaeans' voices from a forgotten world. The city that once ruled the Aegean now sleeps in silence, guarding its secrets beneath stone and myth. Perhaps one day, a new discovery will reveal what truly happened to this golden city. Until then, Mycenae remains an eternal riddle, a reminder that history is not just written in books, but carved in ruins, waiting for those who dare to listen. Hidden between the dusty hills of the Azerbaijani steppe just 60 kilometers southwest of Baku lies one of the most mysterious archaeological landscapes in Eurasia, Gobustan National Park. At first glance, it is nothing but a barren plateau of cracked limestone and wind-eroded rocks. But beneath this desolate silence lies an ancient story, a story carved in stone older than memory itself. For thousands of years, this place has guarded its secret. Over 6,000 rock carvings scattered across more than 400 massive boulders. These engravings depicting hunters' dances, animals' boats, and abstract symbols stretch from the Upper Paleolithic to the Middle Ages, creating an unbroken timeline of human expression that spans nearly 40,000 years. Gobustan is not merely an archaeological site. It is a stone library, an open-air chronicle of humanity's earliest imagination. What do you think who were the first people who carved these mysterious symbols in Gobustan? And what message do you believe they wanted to leave behind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories. The earliest carvings date back to around 12,000 BCE, when the Caspian Sea's coastline reached far inland. Early humans settled among these rocky shelters, leaving behind more than tools or bones. They left stories. Each petroglyph seems to whisper fragments of their daily lives: men chasing wild bulls, women dancing in ritual circles, mysterious geometric spirals, perhaps representing the sun or life cycles. Unlike the simple stick figures seen elsewhere, Gobustan's carvings display a startling sophistication, muscles, proportions, and even motion. The scenes are not random. They seem to follow an order, a purpose. Many archaeologists believe these were ritualistic depictions, not just art, but messages to gods, carved by people who viewed the act of engraving stone as sacred communication. Among the most striking discoveries are the carvings of boats, long vessels with high prows and multiple oarsmen. These boats astonishingly resemble ancient Egyptian reed boats, or even Scandinavian longships, though carved thousands of years before either civilization emerged. How could people from prehistoric Azerbaijan have known such designs? Could this imply that ancient seafarers once crossed the Caspian and beyond, linking the Caucasus with distant cultures? Thor Heyerdahl, the famed Norwegian explorer, visited Gobustan and was captivated by these ships. He proposed a radical theory that people from the Caspian region might have migrated northward thousands of years ago, and that the ancestors of the Vikings could have originated here. Though controversial, Heyerdahl's hypothesis reignited global attention to Gobustan's mysteries, suggesting that this rocky plateau could have once been a crossroads of ancient civilizations. The carvings are not only images, but a possible proto-language. Some symbols repeat across different panels, Son's spirals, and animal tracks arranged with deliberate rhythm. These could have represented concepts, seasons, or cosmological beliefs, forming a system of communication predating any known writing. Archaeologists have compared Gobustan's petroglyphs to those in Lascaux Alta and the Sahara, noting striking similarities that suggest a shared prehistoric symbolic consciousness, a time when art was language and language was prayer. In that sense, Gobustan might not just depict life, it tells it through an ancient grammar carved in stone. Gobustan lies close to Yanadag, the burning mountain, a place where natural gas leaks have kept flames alive for thousands of years. To the ancients, this was no accident of geology. It was divine. The rock carvings show humans with arms raised toward a radiant symbol, often interpreted as the sun or fire deity. Scholars connect these rituals to the Zoroastrian fire cults that emerged millennia later, suggesting Gobustan may represent one of humanity's earliest sacred fire traditions. In a land where the earth itself burned fire, became the bridge between worlds, a medium to reach gods hidden in the flames. One of the strangest features of Gobustan is a rock known as Gaval Dash, or the tambourine stone. When struck, it produces deep, resonant tones similar to metal drums. Scientists discovered that its structure-layered limestone and cavities beneath naturally amplifies vibrations. It's possible that the ancients used these singing stones during rituals or dances, creating prehistoric soundscapes that combined music rhythm and motion carved in time. Standing among those stones today, one can almost hear the echo, a ghostly heartbeat from the age before written history. Alongside carvings and tools, archaeologists found fossilized human footprints preserved in hardened mudstone. They belong to early Homo sapiens, who walked here tens of thousands of years ago. These footprints, embedded near images of hunts and ceremonies, form a haunting tableau, as if the people who carved the stones were still there, forever walking across eternity. This is the question that still haunts every archaeologist who visits this site. Who were they? What kind of people left behind such refined carvings, such complex symbolism, at a time when most of humanity still lived in primitive shelters? No skeletal remains directly link a specific tribe or culture to Gobustan's earliest period. The art predates known civilizations of the Caucasus by millennia. Some of the figures, tall, long-limbed with distinct head shapes, do not match later populations in the region. Were they a lost culture, erased by time and climate? Or could Gobustan have been a meeting ground where nomadic tribes from Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and Europe once converged, sharing myths, rituals, and art? Satellite studies of ancient riverbeds suggest that during the late Ice Age, the Caspian region was a fertile oasis, a refuge for migrating peoples escaping harsh glacial conditions. It's possible that Gobustan was one of humanity's earliest cultural melting pots, where different tribes gathered seasonally to hunt, trade, or celebrate life through art and ritual. Even today, the carvings bear subtle stylistic differences, suggesting multiple generations, possibly multiple ethnic groups, contributing over millennia. One culture may have carved the hunters, another the boats, and another still the abstract symbols. Each generation etched its own beliefs atop the same sacred rocks like layers of memory. But who carved the first lines? That question remains unanswered. Perhaps the true identity of Gobustan's first artists was never meant to be known. Their legacy was not to be remembered by name, but through the universal language of stone. When the wind howls through Gobustan's canyons, it seems to carry the voices of those who lived here. They had no alphabet, no kingdom, no recorded history. Yet what they left endures longer than empire's art that speaks across time, a dialogue between the ancient and the modern. Today, Gobustan is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected not only for its age, but for its mystery. Each year, archaeologists, historians, and travelers come here to stand among the stones and feel that unspoken connection to our shared beginnings. In the end, Gobustan reminds us of something profound, that humanity's story did not begin with cities or kings, but with people who looked at stone and saw the possibility of memory. They carved what they felt, awe, fear, hope, into the earth itself. And though their names are lost, their message endures that even before we had words, we already sought meaning. And in places like Gobustan, the stones still speak. When Howard Carter and his team broke the seal of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, they expected to find treasures of gold and jewels beyond imagination. But among the dazzling artifacts that glittered in the torchlight, one object stood apart, not for its size or opulence, but for its eerie, almost living presence. Resting silently in the antechamber of the treasury was a small wooden shrine upon which lay a black jackal poised in eternal vigilance. This was the Anubis shrine, and though it was dwarfed by the golden coffins and towering statues surrounding it, it carried an aura so powerful, so precise in its craftsmanship that many who beheld it described feeling watched. Do you believe this tiny statue truly holds the spirit of Anubis, the guardian of the dead? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Standing at only about 1 meter tall and 1.5 meters long, the Anubis shrine is not physically imposing. Yet from the moment it was discovered, it commanded the entire space. The statue of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of mummification and the afterlife, lies alert. His front paws stretched forward, his ears sharply upright, and his glass-inlaid eyes gleaming as if conscious of intruders. Beneath him rests a rectangular shrine on a wooden sled, allowing it to be drawn or moved during ritual processions. The sheer balance between simplicity of form and perfection of execution makes it one of the most extraordinary objects ever found in any royal tomb. In Egyptian theology, Anubis was the gatekeeper between life and death, the protector of tombs and the guardian of souls as they faced judgment in the Hall of Ma'at. Thus, the choice of placing this divine effigy to guard Tutankhamun's treasury was no coincidence, it was symbolic perfection. But beyond religious meaning, what fascinated modern scholars most was the astonishing craftsmanship that went into its creation. Despite its modest proportions, every inch of the Anubis statue was crafted with a level of detail that defies comprehension even today. The body was carved from cedar wood, imported from Lebanon, a rare and valuable material in the late Bronze Age. The surface was then coated with a deep black resin, symbolizing both decay and rebirth, the color of the fertile soil of the Nile, the color of the underworld, and the promise of resurrection. The fur was rendered with such smooth precision that under candlelight it gives off a soft organic sheen, as though the jackal's muscles still tense beneath its skin. The artisans achieved this lifelike quality using layers of gesso resin and natural oils, each polished to mirror smoothness. The animal's eyes, however, are the true masterpiece, carved from white calcite and dark obsidian, and encircled with gold leaf to catch the faintest glimmer of light. When one moves around the statue, the eyes appear to follow an effect not accidental, but carefully engineered to give the illusion of awareness. Even the collar around Anubis's neck was delicately gilded with traces of blue glass paste, once used to imitate turquoise and lapis lazuli. These stones were sacred in Egyptian art, believed to hold protective and celestial power. The combination of these materials, wood, gold, glass, and stone, was both technologically advanced and spiritually meaningful, each serving a dual-role beauty and function art and magic. The jackal rests upon a shrine shaped like a rectangular chest, its sides covered in sheets of gold foil incised with symbolic motifs, the Djed pillar symbol of stability, the Tayet knot of Isis, symbol of protection, and the scepter symbol of dominion. The entire piece stands on a small sled, allowing priests to pull it during funerary ceremonies, guiding it as Anubis himself guided the soul of the king. When Carter's team opened the shrine, they found inside it a collection of small ritual objects, amulets, jars of scented unguents, and linen-wrapped bundles, still faintly fragrant after more than 3,000 years. Each item had been placed with exacting care, following funerary texts meant to empower the dead in the next world. What astonished conservators was how these materials, though delicate, had survived the passage of millennia, almost perfectly preserved. The way the wood was joined, using mortise and tenon joints and wooden dowels rather than nails, reflected a mastery of carpentry rarely matched even in modern restoration workshops. The precision of these joints prevented warping and cracking, maintaining perfect balance in an environment sealed for over 3,000 years. The color scheme of the Anubis shrine, black for the god, gold for the shrine, was not mere decoration, but a profound expression of Egyptian theology. Gold represented the flesh of the gods, incorruptible and eternal. Black represented the fertile soil of the Nile, the color of both death and rebirth. Together, they embodied the cycle of life, death, and resurrection, the core of Egyptian belief. This dual symbolism was deliberate. When viewed under the flicker of an oil lamp, the golden shrine seems to shimmer with divine energy, while the jackal atop it absorbs light into his shadowy form, a perfect balance of radiance and darkness. It was this interplay that gave ancient viewers the sense that Anubis was not merely a statue, but an entity poised between worlds, half light, half void. Accounts from Carter's excavation note how members of the team felt uneasy in its presence. The inlaid eyes seemed alive, reflecting torchlight in a way that suggested motion. Some workmen refused to approach it after dusk, believing the statue was truly watching. When viewed from certain angles, the head appears slightly tilted forward, lending it an almost predatory stance, as if Anubis might leap at anyone daring to trespass. Carter himself recorded in his notes that the figure possesses a certain majesty of stillness, a dignity beyond lifelessness. For him, this was not superstition, but a testament to the artistry of its makers, sculptors, and priests who knew how to instill presence into matter. Art historians and materials scientists who later studied the piece were astonished at its technical sophistication. Microscopic analyses revealed that artisans applied the resin in multiple micro-layers, each of varying viscosity, to achieve a smooth, almost anatomical curvature. The gold leaf was beaten to less than 1/100th of a millimeter, attached with animal glue and burnished with stone tools. Such precision required not only artistic vision, but also chemical understanding, knowledge of how different materials reacted to heat, humidity, and time. The Egyptians, through empirical mastery, created an artifact that has withstood the ages while retaining its luster. In a modern context, if this object were scaled up to human size, the precision of its surface detailing would rival that of luxury watchmaking or micro-engineering. Yet it was carved over 3 millennia ago with hand tools of copper and stone. This paradox, tiny size, infinite care, makes the Anubis shrine a triumph of ancient craftsmanship and metaphysical devotion alike. When discovered, the Anubis shrine faced outward, guarding the entrance to the treasury rather than the sarcophagus. This orientation was rare and significant. It suggested the god was not protecting the body within, but warding off intruders from without. The message was unmistakable. Any mortal who dared to cross that threshold would face divine judgment. Beneath the shrine, archaeologists also found a linen shroud tied with twisted cords and sealed with a clay impression bearing Anubis's emblem. The meticulous wrapping mirrored the embalming of a mummy, reinforcing the sense that the statue itself was a living guardian, ritually mummified to exist eternally. Among the grand monuments of Egypt, the pyramids, obelisks, colossal statues, the Anubis shrine seems almost insignificant in size. Yet paradoxically, its intimacy grants it greater power. The closer one observes, the more overwhelming the detail becomes. Its minute scale forces the viewer to kneel, to bow their head to confront Anubis eye to eye. In this sense, the object commands reverence not through magnitude, but through presence. It is this contradiction, the small shrine that feels vast, that makes it so haunting. It bridges the colossal and the microscopic, the divine and the human, eternity and the instant. Though small in size, the Anubis shrine remains one of the most mysterious artifacts from Tutankhamun's tomb. Scholars still debate whether it was merely symbolic or once part of a lost sacred ritual. After thousands of years, its gold and resin still gleam with life, as if Anubis still watches, still guards, and still waits. The Anubis shrine of Tutankhamun's tomb may be small, but within its delicate frame lies a universe of meaning. Its craftsmanship encapsulates the height of Egyptian artistry. Its symbolism bridges life and death. Its presence continues to evoke awe and unease in equal measure. In that balance between fragility and power, between wood and spirit, between black and gold, lies the essence of Egypt's eternal mystery, the conviction that through perfect creation, one might touch the divine. Hidden deep within the dense jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula lies the crumbling stone heart of one of the most powerful and most mysterious empires of the ancient world, the kingdom of the Snake Kings. They called themselves the Karnal dynasty, meaning the people of the serpent. For over 3 centuries, their symbol, a coiled serpent with its jaws open, struck terror and reverence across the Maya world. These were not just rulers. They were priests, conquerors, and masters of illusion, men and women who claimed divine right through the spirit of the serpent, and whose sudden disappearance still puzzles archaeologists to this day. What do you think truly happened to the Snake Kings? Were they overthrown, erased by their own people, or did they simply vanish into legend? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Around the early 5th century CE, a new political power began to stir in the lowlands of Central America. Stone monuments began to bear a strange new emblem, a serpent's head with curling fangs and an open mouth. This symbol soon spread across dozens of Maya cities, from Zibanche in the south to Calakmul in the north. Historians later realized they were witnessing the rise of the Karnal dynasty, the Snake Kingdom. But who founded it? No single name survives. The earliest inscriptions speak only of a mysterious ruler known as the Lord of the Sky Serpent, a title rather than a personal name. Some scholars believe the Karnal may have originated in Zibanche, a city filled with snake imagery carved on every temple stairway. Others argue that they migrated northward, establishing Calakmul as their new capital, one of the largest Maya cities ever built, rivaling Tikal in size and power. Hidden beneath the canopy of the jungle, Calakmul was a masterpiece of urban planning. Its temples rose above the forest like limestone mountains, aligned with celestial cycles, sunsets at solstices, the rising of Venus, and eclipses that marked ritual blood sacrifices. In the heart of the city, murals depicted kings wearing serpent headdresses, performing rituals in clouds of incense. Every ceremony, every war, every alliance revolved around the same central symbol, the serpent, the embodiment of cosmic power, bridging the human and divine realms. To the Maya, the visioned serpent was no myth, it was a portal. Through bloodletting rituals, kings and queens claimed to open a passage to the gods. The serpent's open mouth represented this gateway from which ancestral spirits would emerge. In this sense, the Snake Kings ruled not only through might, but through mysticism and fear. The great rival of Calakmul was Tikal, the city of the jaguar. For over a century, the two superpowers waged a silent war, not of open battles, but of manipulation, diplomacy, and psychological domination. The Snake Kings perfected what modern scholars call the emblem warfare. Instead of conquering cities outright, they forged alliances through marriage trade and ideology. Neighboring rulers were encouraged or coerced to carve the Karnul serpent symbol on their monuments, acknowledging Calakmul's supremacy. Through this network of vassal states, the Karnul expanded their influence across the entire Maya lowlands without massive armies. By the 7th century, Calakmul had become the beating heart of a vast empire stretching from the Caribbean coast to the jungles of Guatemala. But this web of power, like a serpent coiled too tightly, would one day strangle itself. Among the hundreds of hieroglyphic inscriptions unearthed across Maya cities, the true founder of the Karnul dynasty remains an absolute mystery. Unlike other royal lineages, such as Mutul of Tikal or Yaxkukmo of Copan, whose genealogies were meticulously recorded through generations, the Snake Kings appear to have deliberately erased their own origins. Several stelae mention a shadowy figure known as Yuknum, the great ancestor who may have united scattered lords bearing the serpent emblem across the Maya lowlands. Yet no tomb of his has ever been found, nor any physical evidence proving that he truly existed. A more daring hypothesis suggests that the Snake Kings were not native Maya at all, but descendants of earlier civilizations, such as the Olmec or Teotihuacan, who brought with them the serpent symbol, along with advanced architecture, sacred art, and a unique political theology. If this is true, the serpent would not be a Maya creation, but rather an imported ideology, a potent instrument of power used by foreign rulers to legitimize their dominance through divine fear. Wherever they came from, the first Snake King clearly understood how to control people not only through war and violence, but through belief and spiritual fascination foundations that allowed the Karnal dynasty to endure for centuries in both light and shadow. By the end of the 8th century, the mighty empire of Calakmul, ruled by the Snake Kings, began to fade into silence, without the clash of swords or the smoke of war. The inscriptions on stone monuments stopped abruptly. Murals were left unfinished, and grand palaces stood deserted midway through construction. Strangely, there were no signs of warfare or destruction, no mass graves, no traces of fire, no human remains among the ruins. It seemed that Calakmul was dying from within, slowly corroded by the very system of power it had built. Many scholars believe the cause lay in environmental collapse, deforestation, soil exhaustion, and prolonged droughts that drained the city's lifeblood. The vassal states, once bound by the serpent emblem, may have risen in rebellion, ending Karnul's rule through silent defiance rather than open revolt. Yet the most unsettling theory suggests that the royal bloodline of the Snake Kings was deliberately erased by the Maya themselves as an act of ritual purification, a way to cleanse their collective memory. Archaeologists have found evidence across multiple cities. The serpent symbols on stone stelae were intentionally chiseled away, replaced by smooth, blank surfaces, as if to proclaim that the dynasty had never existed at all. It was not merely the fall of an empire, but the death of a belief when humanity chose to erase the god it had once worshipped. By the year 810, CE Calakmul was silent. The jungle reclaimed the temples. Roots tore through sacred inscriptions, and the Great Pyramid, once the second largest in the Maya world, was buried in centuries of soil and time. When explorers rediscovered it in the 20th century, they found no royal tombs, no treasure, not even the bones of its kings. Only one thing remained consistent: the serpent motif etched, repeated, omnipresent. A dynasty that had ruled through the power of a symbol had vanished, leaving only that symbol behind. Even today, archaeologists refer to Calakmul as the city of the serpent's shadow. Despite their disappearance, the influence of the Snake Kings lingers. Their ideology spread across time. Serpents continue to appear in Maya rituals, artwork, and mythology as guardians of knowledge and gateways between worlds. Modern descendants of the Maya still tell stories of Arkanul, the ancient serpent lords who spoke with the sky. To them, these kings were not destroyed. They retreated into the spirit world, waiting for an age when the stars align again for their return. Perhaps the real mystery of the Snake Kings is not how they ruled, but how they made people believe that a serpent could rule through them. Who founded the Snake Kingdom? Why did they vanish without war or warning? And why did their own people seek to erase their existence? The jungle keeps its secrets well. Every vine that wraps around a fallen temple is another line of history rewritten by time. But somewhere beneath the soil of Calakmul, in an unmarked tomb or a hidden chamber, the truth of the Serpent Kings may still lie coiled, waiting to strike once more. From the sky, they look like celestial symbols etched into the earth itself, massive star-shaped fortresses with perfect symmetry and precision geometry that seem almost impossible for their time. These are the star forts, architectural enigmas, scattered across continents built centuries ago, yet defying every expectation of what medieval or early modern engineers should have been capable of. At first glance, they appear to be military structures designed for cannons, defense, and strategy. But when researchers began mapping their global distribution, a far stranger truth emerged. These identical geometric patterns appear everywhere in Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas, and even remote islands. No single empire, no shared blueprint, no global communication system, yet the same perfect form repeats itself as if following an ancient plan lost to time. What do you think? Were these star forts really human-made military structures or remnants of a lost civilization that once understood the Earth in ways we can't imagine? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theory. The first known star forts emerged in the 15th and 16th centuries during the so-called Age of Gunpowder. Historians credit the Italian Renaissance for the design, calling it the Tres Italienne, a structure meant to resist cannon fire with angled bastions. But this neat explanation begins to crumble when we realize that similar star-shaped structures exist in regions that had no contact with Renaissance Europe. From the deserts of India to the forests of Africa, from the frozen lands of Russia to the coasts of South America, these geometric fortresses appear with the same proportions, the same precision, and sometimes even the same orientation to the cardinal directions. How could isolated builders without shared tools or communication create such mathematically identical works? Some scholars dismiss it as coincidence. Others whisper of something deeper, a shared ancient knowledge, or even a forgotten civilization that once spanned the globe long before recorded history. Each star fort is a masterpiece of geometry. The angles of its bastions are calculated so that defenders could cover every blind spot, creating interlocking lines of fire. Yet the level of precision is astonishing. Some walls align with fractional degrees of accuracy far beyond what was possible with rope and peg surveying. Even more puzzling, many forts are near-perfect circles or mandalas, with radial symmetry that matches sacred geometric ratios, including the golden ratio 1.618 and Fibonacci spirals. These aren't accidental. They suggest that whoever designed them understood advanced mathematics, geometry, and spatial design knowledge that supposedly didn't exist outside the hands of Renaissance architects and astronomers. And yet, we find the same patterns centuries earlier, carved into ancient cities or temples. Could the Renaissance engineers have inherited something far older than we think? Star forts like Palmanova in Italy, Fort Bourtange in the Netherlands, and El Castillo de San Marcos in Florida display engineering so advanced that even modern Xi'ad systems find their proportions astonishingly consistent. Some forts are built on marshlands or cliffs with flawless stability, suggesting an understanding of load distribution and hydrodynamics centuries ahead of known engineering principles. Moreover, aerial photography reveals a disturbing pattern. Many forts are partially buried, with layers of sediment covering lower walls or entire bastions. This implies that either they are older than believed, or they were built upon the ruins of even earlier structures whose foundations predate modern civilization. Several forts are oriented along magnetic or astronomical lines. Palmanova aligns nearly perfectly with true north, while others line up with solstice points, or ancient ley lines, invisible pathways believed to channel the Earth's electromagnetic energy. To some researchers, this is coincidence. To others, it suggests that star forts were not only strategic fortresses, but also energy harmonization sites, places designed to stabilize or amplify natural forces of the Earth. If that is true, then what kind of culture would have had both the need and the knowledge to design structures that function on both military and energetic principles? On one hand, history books tell us that star-shaped forts emerged for practical reasons to deflect cannonballs and provide overlapping fire zones. But if that were the only reason, why do so many of them follow sacred proportions and fractal-like geometry resembling religious mandalas or cosmic diagrams? It's as if their creators were encoding a universal pattern, one that connects defense mathematics, astronomy, and spirituality. These forts are not just fortresses. They are symbols, living manifestations of a design language that may reach back to the dawn of civilization. Here lies the greatest mystery of all. No historical document clearly names the true originator of the star fort design. Renaissance architects such as Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci understood geometry, but their records show no evidence of inventing the pattern itself. It simply appears already perfected in multiple places at once. How is it that a complex design requiring mathematical precision, astronomical alignment, and engineering foresight could suddenly emerge simultaneously across continents? Some historians suggest that the knowledge was passed secretly among guilds of masons or military engineers, a closed brotherhood preserving sacred geometry from ancient times. Others propose that star forts are remnants of a pre-cataclysmic civilization, perhaps one that existed before the last ice age, whose advanced understanding of geometry was later rediscovered and misunderstood as mere military architecture. But the deeper question is psychological. Why does humanity build the same forms again and again across cultures without coordination? Are these shapes emerging from a collective memory, a kind of encoded pattern in our consciousness, or were they indeed part of a global blueprint handed down through unknown means? Satellite maps reveal something extraordinary. When connected by straight lines, certain star forts form networks that mirror constellations. Others fall directly along ley lines that link the Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, and Machu Picchu. Could this be chance, or were these forts deliberately positioned to echo the stars, not as fortresses of war, but as anchors of harmony between heaven and earth. If so, the star forts may not be relics of human warfare at all, but echoes of an ancient science of energy and geometry once known to our ancestors and lost to history. It is entirely possible that later empires merely repurposed these ancient structures. As Europe expanded, builders could have reused old foundations, mistaking them for earlier military sites. This would explain why many forts have inconsistent building layers, newer stonework sitting atop much older bases of mysterious origin. If this theory is correct, then what we call Renaissance star forts are not truly Renaissance at all. They are refurbished relics of an unknown civilization, one that understood energy mathematics and Earth itself on a scale we can barely imagine. Today, the star forts lie silent and forgotten, their perfect star shapes seen only from the sky, like messages meant for gods, not men. They whisper of an ancient blueprint, uniting art science and nature monuments of stone that mirror a truth humanity has long buried beneath time. Who truly designed them? Were they the work of forgotten architects who once mapped the Earth's energy lines? A civilization erased by flood or fire, whose geometric wisdom survived only as echoes in our subconscious? Or are these shapes universal, arising again and again, as if the planet itself is teaching us the same geometry, whispering, "This is how you build in harmony with the Earth"? Until we can answer that, the star forts will remain one of the most haunting enigmas of human civilization, not merely forts of war, but symbols of a lost science still etched into the very skin of our planet. Hidden beneath the rolling green fields of Britain lies a legacy of unparalleled craftsmanship, the Celtic gold torcs. These shimmering loops of gold, unearthed from ancient burial mounds and ritual sites, are more than ornaments. They are relics of a civilization whose artistry defied the tools of its time. Each torc embodies a mystery, not only of who wore them, but how they were made with a precision that still puzzles modern science. Do you think the Celts discovered a lost form of advanced metallurgy? Or were they simply masters of ancient craftsmanship beyond our understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Among the ancient Celts, a torc was far more than jewelry. It was a mark of divine favor and social status, worn by kings, warriors, and high priests. Historical accounts from Roman chroniclers describe fearsome Celtic warriors who entered battle clad only in their torc, their bodies painted with woad, their necks encircled by gold that gleamed like the sun. The torc was a declaration of fearlessness, a promise that death itself would not break their bond with the gods. But while the symbolism of the torc is known, the technology behind its creation remains a haunting enigma. Many of the torcs discovered across Britain, particularly in the famed Snettisham hoard of Norfolk, exhibit a level of precision that would challenge even modern jewelers equipped with advanced machinery. These artifacts date back over 2,000 years, yet their makers achieved feats of metallurgy that seem even now beyond the reach of Iron Age technology. Each torc consists of multiple gold strands, often 2, 4, or even 8, twisted together in perfect uniformity. The symmetry is astonishing: no visible seams, no irregularities, and no tool marks detectable even under magnification. To twist such dense metal evenly along its entire length requires not only physical strength, but also a profound understanding of metal behavior under varying temperatures and pressures. Gold, as we know, softens easily under heat. To twist it without snapping or deforming it demands precise control over its malleability, something that ancient Celts supposedly lacked the tools to measure. And yet they succeeded again and again, producing torcs that weigh several kilograms but retain flawless geometric alignment. Some pieces, like the Ipswich torc, or the Snettisham Great Torc are masterpieces of engineering, composed of 70 to 100 meters of gold wire, meticulously twisted and looped. The torc forms a continuous circuit with no beginning and no end, symbolizing eternity. Modern metallurgists who have studied these artifacts admit that reproducing them today without modern machinery would take weeks or months, and even then, matching the ancient precision is nearly impossible. Another puzzle lies in the material itself. Tests reveal that these torcs are made of sophisticated alloys of gold, silver, and copper, carefully balanced to enhance strength while maintaining luster. This requires a precise knowledge of melting points and chemical ratios. Yet there is no evidence of smelting furnaces capable of such delicate temperature control in Iron Age Britain. Moreover, the source of the gold remains uncertain. Some analyses suggest it came from distant regions, perhaps the Alps, Iberia, or even as far as Anatolia. The implication is staggering. It hints at a vast trade network, or at least shared metallurgical knowledge, across ancient Europe, connecting the Celtic tribes to civilizations far beyond their borders. Could it be that the Celts inherited their metalworking secrets from an earlier forgotten culture, one that mastered gold manipulation long before written history? The Snettisham hoard alone, discovered in a series of excavations between 1948 and 1990, yielded over 150 torcs, each crafted with extraordinary detail. Among them, the Great Torc stands as a crowning achievement, a piece so perfect that some researchers speculate it was made with a lost tool or process unknown to modern metallurgy. Its uniform twist suggests the use of a rotating mechanism, something like a primitive lathe, yet there is no archaeological evidence of such a device among Celtic tools. Others theorize that the Celts used heat cycling and repeated annealing, softening the gold just enough to twist it without fracturing. But even that doesn't explain how they achieved microscopic uniformity, every twist identical to the next, each line flowing seamlessly into the next curve. Under high magnification, these torcs reveal a near-crystalline order, as if shaped by both art and science, perhaps guided by principles of geometry and sacred proportion. Some researchers have noted ratios within their patterns that echo the golden ratio, suggesting that Celtic artisans may have intuitively understood mathematical harmony centuries before its formal discovery in Greece. The perfection of these torcs raises another question: were they meant to be worn, or were they crafted purely for ritual? Some show clear signs of wear, suggesting they adorned living bodies. Others, however, appear pristine, as if created not for humans, but for the gods themselves. These unblemished pieces are often found in sacred pits near rivers or marshes, deliberately buried or submerged. In Celtic belief, water was a portal between worlds. Offering gold to it may have been a way to communicate with divine forces, to return the metal of the earth to its spiritual source. In that sense, the torc was not just a display of craftsmanship, it was a bridge between human ingenuity and cosmic mystery. Even today, experts in metallurgy and archaeology struggle to replicate the methods used by Celtic smiths. Modern experiments, using hand tools, heating and twisting, fail to achieve the same fluid precision and tensile strength. How could Iron Age artisans, with primitive bellows and stone anvils, produce results that rival computer-guided instruments? Some speculate that the Celts had access to specialized molds, dies, or rotational fixtures tools that have yet to be found. Others propose that their understanding of metallurgy was empirical, developed through centuries of trial and observation, passed down through secret guilds or priestly classes like the Druids. But there's a more intriguing theory, that the Celts preserved knowledge inherited from a pre-Celtic civilization, perhaps remnants of the Bronze Age metallurgists whose techniques vanished with time. Across Europe, from the Iberian Peninsula to the Balkans, similar golden torcs appear, suggesting a shared lineage of technology stretching back thousands of years. The designs etched and twisted into each torc are more than decorations. Spirals, knots, and flowing patterns represent the Celtic vision of the universe, a world without beginning or end, where life, death, and rebirth flow together. Some scholars see in these motifs astronomical alignments or encoded cosmological knowledge, perhaps mapping celestial cycles or solstices. Gold itself, incorruptible and radiant, symbolized the sun's eternal energy, the source of life. To master gold was in essence to master a fragment of divine power. The torc therefore became both a physical and spiritual artifact, a fusion of science and sanctity, of metallurgy and myth. After decades of study, many questions remain unanswered. How did the Celts achieve their flawless twisting technique? What tools or methods did they use to manipulate gold with such precision? Where did their raw materials come from? And who taught them the art of alloying? Were these torcs truly Celtic in origin, or were they inheritances from a forgotten culture predating the Celts themselves? Each discovery raises more questions than it answers. Some metallurgists believe the torcs could reveal a lost chapter of human technological evolution, where craftsmanship and spirituality intertwined to create something truly transcendent. The Celtic gold torcs of Britain are not merely archaeological finds, they are messages from a time when art and science were inseparable. They whisper of a people who saw beauty in mathematics, divinity in geometry, and eternity in metal. Their creators may have vanished, but their golden works endure, still gleaming with the light of forgotten genius. Each torc tells a silent story of human hands that defied their era, of minds that bent the rules of nature, of a civilization that may have known more than we dare imagine. Perhaps that is the true mystery of the Celtic gold torcs. They remind us that progress is not a straight line, that sometimes the ancients stood closer to perfection than we do today. High in the sacred valley of Peru, nestled between the jagged peaks of the Andes, lies the ancient fortress and temple complex of Ollantaytambo, a site so sophisticated that even modern engineers struggle to explain its existence. Among its countless architectural wonders, one monument stands out for both its scale and its mystery: the fallen megalith, a massive unfinished block of stone that lies abandoned halfway up the mountain slope, as if time itself decided to freeze its journey. At first glance, it looks like just another broken piece of rock. But upon closer inspection, the fallen megalith reveals a story that challenges our entire understanding of ancient construction. It is not just the size of the block, estimated to weigh over 100 tons, that amazes researchers, but the way it was shaped, transported, and left stranded far from its quarry. Every groove, every line carved into its surface seems to whisper of a technology far beyond what the Inca civilization is believed to have possessed. Do you believe the Inca were capable of moving these megaliths using only primitive tools and manpower, or could there have been an ancient technology now lost to time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This debate is far from over. The megalith lies near the Temple of the Sun, surrounded by other colossal stones, forming what is known as the Wall of the Six Monoliths, one of the finest examples of precision stonework in the ancient world. Some archaeologists believe that the fallen megalith was intended to be the seventh block of this sacred wall, but it never made it there. It fell or was abandoned midway during transport, leaving behind clues that have puzzled scientists and historians for decades. When you stand before it, the most astonishing realization strikes you. This single block was not quarried from the mountain it rests on. geological analysis shows that its mineral composition matches a distant quarry located across the Urubamba River nearly 5 kilometers away. Between that quarry and the temple complex lies a valley so deep and steep that even with today's machinery moving, such a stone would require monumental effort and planning. The greatest enigma of the fallen megalith lies not in its carving, but in its journey, or the attempt at one. To bring this massive block from the quarry to its current position, ancient builders would have had to descend a steep mountainside, cross the wide Urubamba River, and then climb another mountain, all at an altitude where oxygen is scarce and terrain is treacherous. Modern geologists who retrace this route describe it as an impossible path for stone blocks exceeding 50 tons. There are no traces of a bridge that could have supported such weight, and even if primitive wooden structures were built, they would have collapsed instantly under the load. Some theories propose that the ancient engineers may have used temporary earthen ramps rollers made from tree trunks and massive manpower to haul the stones. But the landscape poses a contradiction. Ollantaytambo sits in an area almost devoid of large trees, making the production of thousands of wooden rollers unlikely. Even if they somehow sourced the timber from miles away, the logistics of coordinating such a feat across the Andes seems beyond human endurance. Here lies one of the most fascinating possibilities. A few alternative researchers, observing the smoothness and precision of the fallen megalith, have suggested that the builders might have known ways to neutralize or reduce the effective weight of stone through techniques involving sound frequencies, vibration, or unknown chemical processes. While mainstream archaeology dismisses these ideas as speculative ancient legends, from the Andes speak of priests and builders who could make stones sing and move at their command. Even in neighboring regions like Tiahuanaco and Pumapunku, stones of similar magnitude and precision appear to have been handled with inexplicable ease. Could it be that the same technology or knowledge was used at Ollantaytambo and later lost forever? Another remarkable detail lies in the alignment of the fallen megalith with nearby structures. Studies using GPS and laser scanning show that the block's resting place lines up almost perfectly with the temple platform above. This implies that the movement of such massive stones was not random, but part of a carefully premeditated engineering system, possibly involving a sequence of platforms, ramps, or pulleys now lost to time. Moreover, certain grooves along the rock's sides appear to have been designed to fit rope or metal clamps, hinting that the ancient builders might have engineered a sophisticated hauling system far more organized than mere brute force. What halted this monumental effort? Why was the stone left unfinished and abandoned? Archaeological layers around the fallen megalith suggest a sudden interruption, possibly caused by a massive earthquake or even the Spanish invasion, which disrupted the Inca's labor systems. Yet others believe the work had already been abandoned long before the Inca period, pointing to an even older culture that began the project and vanished before completing it. If that's true, then Ollantaytambo may not be an Inca construction at all, but rather a site the Inca inherited and adapted, as they did with many other ancient ruins across Peru. On several surfaces of the fallen megalith, researchers have discovered unusual traces, suggesting that the stone may once have been melted or exposed to extremely high temperatures. Under microscopic examination, the edges appear slightly warped, and the surface shows a smooth, glass-like sheen, something impossible to achieve with simple copper or stone tools. Some cut marks even show light calcification, as if the rock had been temporarily softened and then solidified again, a phenomenon never observed naturally. If this hypothesis is true, it implies that ancient builders might have used a form of heat-based or high-frequency energy technology to shape the stone, allowing them to achieve near-perfect precision in fitting each block together. Similar evidence has been found at Pumapunku and Sacsayhuaman, two sites sharing both architectural style and stone composition with Ollantaytambo. This strongly suggests that a technologically advanced pre-Inca civilization may once have spanned the Andes, mastering the mysterious ability to soften or melt stone, a technique humanity has yet to replicate. Local Quechua traditions tell of the Viracocha divine beings who came from the sea and built with the stones as if they were clay. Could these myths preserve a memory of the true builders, an ancient race of engineers whose knowledge vanished long before recorded history began? The precision of the fallen megalith seems to lend weight to such legends. The joins between stones, the laser-straight cuts, and the flawless alignment of massive blocks are difficult to explain even with modern machinery. How could a culture working with bronze chisels and stone hammers achieve such results? Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the fallen megalith is not its abandonment, but its silence. It sits there unmoved for centuries, halfway between earth and sky, as if caught between the human and the divine. It tells us that the ancients were not primitive, they were ingenious, determined, and perhaps guardians of forgotten sciences. It is a monument not just to their craftsmanship, but to their will to connect heaven and earth through stone. The route that once carried this megalith over rivers and mountains is gone, erased by time, but the question remains carved into its fractured surface. How did they do it? And what have we lost since then? The fallen megalith of Ollantaytambo is far more than an unfinished block of stone. It is a challenge to modern understanding, a physical riddle that transcends centuries. If ancient people could move shape and align stones weighing more than 100 tons across valleys and rivers, then our picture of pre-Columbian history may be incomplete. Perhaps the true mystery of Ollantaytambo lies not in what we see, but in what we can no longer comprehend, a glimpse into a forgotten epoch when human hands and unknown technologies worked in harmony with the mountains themselves. Beneath the sun-bleached cliffs of Santorini, hidden under layers of volcanic ash, lies one of the most astonishing archaeological wonders of the ancient world, the buried city of Akrotiri. Often called the Pompeii of the Aegean, this prehistoric metropolis was frozen in time by a catastrophic volcanic eruption around the 17th century BCE. Yet what archaeologists uncovered beneath the ash wasn't a primitive settlement of mud huts or crude walls, it was a sophisticated urban civilization, centuries ahead of its time, whose engineering brilliance still baffles modern science. Do you believe an ancient city like Akrotiri could truly have been so advanced, far ahead of its time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When excavations began in 1967, led by Professor Spiriton Marinatos, researchers expected to find a small Minoan outpost. What they discovered was an entire cityscape, complete with paved streets, multi-story homes, drainage systems, decorative art, and an urban design that seemed to belong to a later millennium. Akrotiri's architecture revealed a level of planning and precision that no one had imagined possible for a Bronze Age culture. The construction techniques are perhaps the most extraordinary mystery of all. Buildings in Akrotiri often rise 2 or even 3 stories high, with walls made of stone clay and a volcanic material known as pumice, all carefully bound together by a natural mortar that absorbed seismic shocks. This was not random architecture. Each building was aligned to maximize stability and airflow, with windows placed strategically for light and ventilation. Archaeologists noticed that wooden beams were used within the walls, an ancient form of earthquake-resistant engineering, a principle rediscovered only in modern times. Even more astonishing is the presence of a dual plumbing system, one for fresh water and another for wastewater, running through the city walls. The pipes, made of baked clay, were laid with precision and even used pressure differences to control water flow. Toilets with flushing mechanisms, bathtubs connected to drains, and fountains that may have been supplied by natural springs all point to an understanding of hydraulics far beyond what was thought possible in 1600 BCE. Some engineers have compared Akrotiri's plumbing sophistication to that of the Romans, yet Akrotiri predates Rome by more than 1,000 years. This architectural ingenuity raises haunting questions. How could an island society isolated in the Aegean Sea achieve such advanced knowledge? Some scholars propose that the Minoans, whose influence spread from Crete to Santorini, possessed a scientific curiosity that pushed them to study earthquakes and water systems. Others suggest the knowledge might have come through maritime trade, perhaps from contacts with Egypt or Mesopotamia civilizations already skilled in construction and irrigation. But no definitive evidence explains how the inhabitants of Akrotiri mastered these techniques so early. Inside the houses, elegance met engineering. Many walls were coated in fine plaster, painted with vivid frescoes that remain breathtakingly fresh even after 600 years. These murals depict graceful women sailors' ships and scenes of daily life, a society at peace, wealthy and confident in its technology. The colors were made using mineral pigments that could withstand heat and time, and the smoothness of the surfaces suggests a mastery of materials. To support upper floors, builders used internal wooden frames similar to the structural skeletons used in modern buildings, making Akrotiri's houses both flexible and durable. The city's layout itself reflects a deep understanding of urban planning. Narrow streets twist through densely packed houses, but always with drainage channels below, allowing runoff to be carried safely away during rain. Squares and open courtyards provide light and communal space. Staircases are built from volcanic stone, cut precisely and in some buildings even decorated. Every design choice seems to combine function, safety, and aesthetics, a balance that feels astonishingly modern. But perhaps the most enigmatic part of the story is the absence of death. Despite the massive eruption that buried the city, archaeologists have found no human remains. Unlike Pompeii, where victims were caught by surprise, Akrotiri's people appear to have evacuated before the disaster. Tools, storage jars, and furniture were left behind, but gold and valuables were taken, suggesting an orderly escape. Could it be that their engineering knowledge extended to natural observation, allowing them to recognize warning signs of an impending eruption? Some hypothesize that early tremors or the retreat of the sea may have prompted a mass evacuation. If true, the people of Akrotiri may have been among the first in history to use science and observation to save themselves from nature's wrath. Yet after the eruption, Akrotiri disappeared from memory. The volcano obliterated most of Santorini, forming the caldera we see today, a crescent-shaped island surrounding a vast sea-filled crater. The ash and pumice sealed the city, completely preserving it like a time capsule. For thousands of years, Akrotiri remained hidden, its stories silenced beneath the earth, until accidental discoveries in the 19th and 20th centuries revealed fragments of frescoes and pottery that hinted at something extraordinary below. In the decades since, excavations have only scratched the surface, literally. Archaeologists estimate that less than 1/3 of the city has been uncovered. Beneath the unexcavated layers may lie temples, workshops, or archives that could change our understanding of the ancient world. Every new wall or vessel unearthed deepens the mystery. Who were these people? And how did they achieve such perfection in art, science, and design? The sophistication of Akrotiri has led many to connect it with the legend of Atlantis. Plato described a mighty island civilization that fell beneath the sea after defying the gods, prosperous, beautiful, and technologically advanced. The parallels are eerie, a maritime culture rich in art and trade, destroyed suddenly by a massive volcanic catastrophe in the Aegean. While no proof links the two directly, Akrotiri embodies everything the Atlantis myth suggests: a lost golden age of human achievement. What makes Akrotiri more than a ruin is the humanity it reveals. Within those silent streets and painted walls, one can almost hear the rhythm of a thriving society: artisans crafting pottery, sailors preparing their ships, families gathering in the courtyards of their multi-story homes. They lived not in fear, but in harmony with nature until the earth itself rebelled. Their legacy reminds us that technology and culture are fragile gifts easily lost to time and catastrophe. The buried city of Akrotiri remains a stunning reminder of human brilliance. Its curved walls, staircases, and drainage systems mirror the logic of modern design, proving that 3,600 years ago, people already mastered architecture and engineering far beyond their time. Preserved beneath volcanic ash, Akrotiri whispers across millennia, human genius is eternal. Yet even the greatest cities can disappear in a single breath of the earth. When a group of farmers struck hardened clay while digging a well in 1974 near Xi'an, they had no idea they were about to unveil one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in human history. Beneath the quiet fields of Shanxi province lay an entire underground world, thousands of life-size soldiers standing in formation, eternally guarding the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. Yet even after decades of excavation and research, only a fraction of this vast necropolis has been explored. Deep underground hidden vaults remain sealed, whispering secrets that could rewrite our understanding of ancient China. What do you think? Could the unopened chambers beneath Qin Shi Huang's tomb still hide technologies or secrets beyond our imagination? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The terracotta army as we know it today is merely the visible surface of an empire frozen in time. The mausoleum complex itself spans over 56 square kilometers, with satellite tombs, ritual pits, stables, and armories buried in layers of carefully engineered soil. Modern ground-penetrating radar and magnetometric scans have revealed dozens of sealed chambers still untouched, a labyrinth of corridors that once connected the emperor's afterlife city. But the most astonishing aspect of this discovery is not only its scale, but the unbelievable craftsmanship and preservation techniques that made these figures survive for over 2,000 years in colors, details, and individuality that rival even modern art. Each warrior stands about 1.8 to 2 meters tall, crafted with astonishing precision. No two faces are identical. Some wear stern expressions, others faint smiles. Their hairstyles differ according to rank: top knots for officers, braids for infantrymen. Even their armor plates are sculpted in layers, mimicking the texture of real leather and bronze. These details were not the result of mass production, but individualized artistry, suggesting that thousands of craftsmen worked under a highly organized and technically advanced system, each contributing their own touch. What truly mystifies scientists is how the terracotta army retained its intricate form and traces of color after 200 years underground. Initially, archaeologists were astonished to find that the statues were not plain brown as they appear today. Under the soil, many figures were once covered in vivid pigments: purple, green, blue, red, and even pink. painted over a layer of shiny lacquer that sealed the clay. This lacquer, derived from the sap of the Toxicodendron venicifluum tree, acted as a natural preservative, but it also became the army's greatest vulnerability. Once unearthed and exposed to air, the lacquer began to curl, crack, and peel within minutes, causing the color layer to flake away before conservation teams could act. The original discovery in the 1970s saw hundreds of warriors lose their pigments almost instantly after excavation. This devastating loss forced Chinese scientists to halt further large-scale digs until modern preservation methods could be developed. It was one of archaeology's most painful lessons. Sometimes discovering too soon means destroying forever. In the decades that followed, scientists around the world collaborated to understand the mysterious chemistry behind the Qin artisans' materials. Through spectroscopy and electron microscopy, researchers found that the pigments included rare compounds such as Han purple and Han blue synthetic barium copper silicates that did not exist anywhere else in the world until rediscovered by modern chemistry in the 19th century. This means that the Qin dynasty had already mastered the creation of artificial pigments more than 2 millennia before the scientific revolution, possibly using techniques lost through history. Even more remarkable is the structural durability of the warriors themselves. The clay used was not ordinary earthenware, but a carefully engineered mixture of fine loess soil, quartz sand, and crushed mica, giving the statues exceptional hardness once fired. Tests show that the kilns reach temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius uniform across massive furnaces, capable of firing life-sized figures, a feat of thermal control unheard of in the 3rd century BCE. Some metallurgical analyses also revealed traces of chromium on bronze weapons, buried with the soldiers, indicating an early form of anti-rust treatment, a technology not reintroduced in the West until the 20th century. These discoveries led to one haunting question. How did an ancient civilization, more than 2,000 years ago, achieve a level of chemical and metallurgical sophistication comparable to modern industrial processes? Did they inherit knowledge from earlier lost traditions, or were they experimenting with techniques we've only recently rediscovered? The answer remains buried, perhaps, in the unopened chambers of the emperor's hidden vaults. Beneath the outer pits where the terracotta army stands, radar mapping has identified several unexcavated areas believed to contain workshops, artisans' tombs, and storage rooms filled with molds and raw materials. Scholars think these vaults may hold the original tools, pigments, and kiln remains used to construct the army, a potential Rosetta Stone for understanding ancient Chinese material science. Yet these chambers remain sealed, protected by policy and by fear. According to historical records by Sima Qian, the emperor's burial chamber lies even deeper, 35 meters underground, its ceiling embedded with pearls representing the constellations and rivers of Mercury flowing across a miniature landscape of China. The soil above this core tomb shows mercury concentrations hundreds of times above normal levels, confirming that the description might be literal. Entering such an environment without advanced technology would be lethal. For now, that hidden heart of the mausoleum remains undisturbed, waiting in darkness. Preserving the terracotta warriors has become a race against time and chemistry. The discovery of Han purple and Han blue not only expanded our knowledge of ancient innovation, but also raised philosophical questions about how civilizations forget. The formula for these pigments vanished soon after the Qin dynasty's fall, lost to centuries of chaos. Only fragments of their brilliance remain on the soldiers' lips and sleeves, fading reminders of an empire that once believed art could grant immortality. Today, researchers use cutting-edge preservation techniques, vacuum chambers, nitrogen-filled glass cases, and controlled humidity to stabilize exposed figures. International teams are developing nanomaterial coatings that mimic ancient lacquer, allowing pigments to survive exposure. Yet despite all this progress, archaeologists have intentionally left the emperor's main vault sealed, respecting both cultural caution and scientific prudence. Some mysteries, they say, should remain untouched until the world is ready to protect what it uncovers. Perhaps the true legacy of Qin Shi Huang's underground army is a reminder that conquering time has its price. Each warrior, molded by ancient artisans, was meant to guard eternity, and they still do. Standing silently under museum lights, they preserve the dream of immortality. Beyond them, sealed vaults may still hide unknown colors, forgotten alloys, and lost technologies. Until those chambers are opened, the terracotta warriors will remain silent, vigilant, and timeless echoes of an empire that refused to fade. Hidden beneath the sands of northern Iraq lies one of the greatest architectural enigmas of the ancient world, the lost palace of Ashurbanipal, the last great king of Assyria. Once the heart of Nineveh, the mightiest city of the 7th century BCE, this monumental palace stood as the embodiment of both power and intellect, a place where war knowledge and art intertwined to form the soul of an empire. Yet today, it exists only in fragments, scattered slabs of carved stone cuneiform tablets hardened by fire, and stories whispered through time. If the palace of Ashurbanipal were ever fully unearthed, what do you think we would discover? An ancient treasury of knowledge or a mystery never meant to be known? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Ashurbanipal was not an ordinary ruler. Unlike most kings of the ancient Near East, he could read and write, mastering both Sumerian and Akkadian. His intellect and obsession with knowledge made him a paradox among conquerors, a warrior scholar who commanded one of history's most feared armies while collecting the words of poets and priests. His palace reflected that duality, not just a fortress of authority, but a temple of art and wisdom. Archaeologists who first unearthed parts of the palace in the 19th century described its splendor in awe. The complex reportedly contained over 80 rooms, corridors lined with alabaster panels, and vast courtyards paved with glazed bricks. But what truly astonished them were the relief's colossal stone carvings that once adorned nearly every wall. These weren't mere decorations. They were stories brought to life with breathtaking skill. Each scene captured the pulse of the Assyrian world: kings hunting lions, soldiers crossing rivers, priests invoking the gods, and captives pleading for mercy. What makes these carvings extraordinary is the unparalleled craftsmanship behind them, a level of artistry that defied the technological limitations of the age. The Assyrian sculptors of Ashurbanipal's court possessed an almost modern understanding of anatomy, depth, and motion. They used tools of bronze and copper to chisel gypsum and alabaster materials far harder than their instruments, yet achieved precision that rivals laser-cut detail today. Look closely at the reliefs from the famous Lion Hunt series, perhaps the pinnacle of ancient Mesopotamian sculpture. The lions are shown mid-leap muscles, tensed claws, extended their eyes wide with pain and fury as arrows pierce their flesh. The king, calm and composed, draws his bow, the folds of his robe captured in delicate curving lines. The realism is haunting. Each vein, main strand, and arrow impact was carved to capture the raw rhythm of life and death. For an art form that predates Greece by centuries, this mastery of movement and emotion remains almost unbelievable. The sculptors of Ashurbanipal didn't merely carve stone, they sculpted time itself. They discovered that by cutting into gypsum at varying depths and angles, they could manipulate how sunlight cast shadows across the reliefs, creating an illusion of motion as the day passed. In the flickering torchlight of palace corridors, these carvings would seem to breathe and move. Scholars often describe it as an early experiment in animated art, long before cinema or optical illusion was ever conceived. But the genius of these artisans didn't end with creation. They also mastered the art of preservation, consciously or not. The gypsum walls were coated with a thin layer of bitumen and lime plaster to repel moisture and sand, while pigments derived from lapis lazuli, hematite, and malachite added subtle hues to armor, robes, and wings. Though time and fire erased most of the color, microscopic analysis reveals that the palace once gleamed with deep blues, reds, and golds, a vibrant visual language that must have overwhelmed every visitor who stepped through its gates. Even more astonishing is how the palace's destruction became the reason we still know it today. When Nineveh fell to Babylonian and Median forces in 612 BCE, the palace burned. The once magnificent walls collapsed under layers of ash. Yet the intense heat from the fire baked the clay tablets of Ashurbanipal's library, turning fragile earth into enduring ceramics. This accidental preservation transformed the disaster into a miracle. Thousands of texts survived intact, including the world's oldest epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Among the ruins, excavators also found the charred remains of reliefs still bearing crisp carvings despite millennia underground. The quality of these preserved pieces tells us something profound. The artisans of Nineveh worked with an understanding of durability that rivaled modern conservation science. They knew how to harness the properties of stone pigment and architecture to resist decay. The Assyrians might not have spoken in terms of material science, but their works reveal a practical mastery of it. Modern archaeologists have tried to reconstruct sections of the palace, digitally revealing that the structure was laid out in a complex sequence of ceremonial and private spaces. The central throne room stretched nearly 50 meters long, lined with continuous narrative panels, a carved history of the king's victories. The combination of scale and intricacy is staggering. Some reliefs measure over 2 meters high and extend for dozens of meters, yet not a single line or proportion feels rushed or crude. Each panel was designed to connect seamlessly to the next, suggesting a meticulous plan, almost as if the entire palace was meant to be read like a monumental book written in stone. Today, the surviving fragments of Ashurbanipal's palace lie scattered across museums in London, Paris, and Baghdad. Visitors who stand before them often remark on the same strange feeling, a sense that the carvings still retain their pulse, their soundless roar from a time when empires rose and fell under the shadow of the Assyrian kings. What remains is not just art, it is the preserved breath of a civilization that understood the power of memory. And yet much of the palace remains undiscovered. Archaeological surveys show that vast sections of Nineveh are still buried beneath modern Mosul. Beneath its streets and foundations may lie sealed chambers, rooms that might contain new tablets, lost reliefs, or even the king's private sanctum. If ever uncovered, they could rewrite what we know about the Assyrian world and the dawn of artistic genius. The lost palace of Ashurbanipal, therefore, is not merely an ancient ruin, it is a dialogue across millennia between creators who carved immortality into stone and us who struggled to comprehend how they did it. It reminds us that even in an age of bronze tools and clay tablets, humanity had already mastered the most powerful form of preservation, the ability to make beauty endure beyond death, beyond empire, beyond time itself. So the question remains, if the walls of Nineveh could still speak through their carvings, what stories of forgotten brilliance and craftsmanship would they tell us today? Hidden deep within the limestone cliffs of southern France lies a portal into humanity's distant past, the Chauvet Cave, or Grotte Chauvet Pont d'Arc. Discovered in 1994 near the Ardèche River, this Ice Age sanctuary has stunned archaeologists, artists, and scientists alike. For within its walls lie the oldest known paintings in human history, created over 36,000 years ago, yet rendered with a level of skill, movement, and emotional depth that seems utterly impossible for a prehistoric age. When modern explorers first entered the sealed darkness of Chauvet, their lights fell upon hundreds of animals: lions, rhinos, mammoths, horses, and bears, drawn with mastery on the stone walls. What they saw defied every assumption about our ancestors. These were not crude sketches or primitive outlines. They were artworks, alive with motion, full of confidence, intention, and narrative rhythm. The discovery forced humanity to rewrite what it thought it knew about the origins of creativity itself. If humans living 36,000 years ago could create art with such incredible realism and emotion, do you think they might have possessed a level of intelligence or culture far beyond what history tells us? Could Chauvet be evidence of a forgotten chapter of human creativity, one that began long before recorded civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you believe these Ice Age artists were trying to express through their breathtaking masterpieces? The walls of Chauvet are covered with over 400 animal figures executed in charcoal ochre and ground hematite, sometimes shaded with fingers, sometimes blended with smudges of ash to create gradations of tone. The artists used the natural contours of the rock to give depth and dimension, a kind of prehistoric 3D effect. Some scenes even depict herds in motion, with overlapping legs and blurred lines to suggest running or charging, a technique that would not reappear in art until tens of thousands of years later. It is as if these ancient humans instinctively understood perspective, proportion, and dynamic composition. A group of horses gallops across the wall with their heads turned in synchronized rhythm. Nearby, a rhinoceros lowers its horn in confrontation, its body drawn in multiple outlines to simulate movement. This is not mere representation, it is expression. These people were not simply recording the world they saw. They were interpreting it, breathing into stone, a sense of life and energy that transcends time. How could such mastery exist at the very dawn of art? To scientists, the precision of these images is nothing short of impossible. The human mind of that era was supposed to be primitive, focused solely on survival. Yet in Chauvet, we find a level of aesthetic awareness and symbolic thinking equal to, or perhaps greater than, anything that would come for millennia. Standing before the panel of horses or the lion wall, one feels something profoundly human, a shared consciousness that stretches across 36 millennia. The artists of Chauvet were clearly more than hunters. They were storytellers, dreamers, and observers of the soul. What makes these paintings so moving is their emotional realism. The horses seem to breathe, their nostrils flaring. The lions move as a pack, muscles, tense eyes, locked on prey. One can almost feel the rhythm of life and death echoing through the darkness. There is no human triumph here, no depiction of man's dominance, only reverence for the wild world that surrounded them. This emotional depth suggests something astonishing that early humans already possessed, a complex inner world capable of empathy, imagination, and awe. To paint such things in the light of flickering torches in a cave deep beneath the earth was not an act of decoration. It was a ceremony of memory, perhaps even of worship. The cave itself amplifies the mystery. After a massive rock slide around 20,000 years ago, Chauvet was sealed off from the world, preserving its contents in perfect stillness. The air, the footprints, even the soot from ancient torches remain undisturbed. On the floor, archaeologists found the footprint of an 8-year-old child alongside that of a wolf, a haunting image of companionship or coincidence. Time in Chauvet stopped completely. What we see today is not a reconstruction, not an archaeological site. It is the exact environment where those Ice Age artists stood, crouched and painted by firelight. Every stroke, every fingerprint, every trail of ash belongs to them, and yet their identity remains a total mystery. We do not know who they were, what they called themselves, or what their world looked like beyond these walls. What we do know is that within this darkness, they created a window into the human spirit that has never closed. The discovery of Chauvet overturned the very idea of progress. For centuries, we believed art evolved slowly from crude carvings to stylized figures, from stickmen to realism. But Chauvet shattered that timeline. Here, at the very beginning of artistic history, humans had already achieved mastery. The shading, the anatomical precision, the dynamic compositions, all of it reveals a cognitive and aesthetic sophistication we thought belonged only to much later civilizations. Some researchers even speculate that these early humans had a kind of symbolic language or ritual system, using art as a means of communication with forces beyond their comprehension. In this sense, the Chauvet artists were not simply painting animals, they were painting their worldviews, their fears, their myths. The walls became their cosmos, a stage where humanity first dared to dream. Perhaps the most breathtaking scene in Chauvet is the lion panel, a frieze depicting 16 lions in the act of hunting bison. Drawn with sweeping lines of black charcoal, their eyes glow with intelligence and intent. The composition is cinematic depth, tension, and narrative. It feels almost alive, like a moment captured in motion. For paleoartists and neuroscientists alike, this panel represents the emergence of abstract thought, the ability to visualize what is not present, to reimagine the world. It is both art and philosophy. To stand before it is to confront the dawn of consciousness itself. Because of its fragility, the real Chauvet cave is now closed to the public. Only scientists under strict protection can enter wearing filtered suits to avoid contaminating its delicate ecosystem. Instead, a perfect replica Chauvet 2 was built nearby, recreating every crack, pigment, and contour with millimeter precision. Even so, the original cave remains shrouded in silence. Its paintings wait in darkness untouched, as if guarding the last pure connection between art and nature. Chauvet is more than an archaeological site. It is a cathedral built by shadows, where human creativity first lit its torch. The Chauvet cave forces us to ask, what does it mean to be human? If people of the Ice Age could create such breathtaking works before agriculture, before writing, before cities, then creativity is not the product of civilization. It is the essence of humanity itself. In those flickering lights, 36,000 years ago, when charcoal met stone, the human spirit spoke for the first time, and it spoke in art. Beneath the quiet plains of southern Ukraine, where the wind from the Black Sea whispers through forgotten ruins, lies a cemetery unlike any other, a place where the dead left behind a language no living person can read. This is the Olbia Necropolis, the ancient burial ground of a Greek colony from the 7th century BCE. But instead of revealing the story of its people, it hides it behind a veil of cryptic symbols, spirals etched into clay eyes, carved into stone, and stars engraved deep within the earth. Every excavation brings up new artifacts, yet no answers. It's as if the dead of Olbia were sending messages not to us, but to eternity, writing in a sacred code meant only for the afterlife, a code that still defies the minds of modern scholars today. What do you think these ancient symbols were trying to say? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Olbia was no ordinary Greek settlement. It stood at the edge of civilization, facing the vast steppes of Scythia. Traders, soldiers, mystics, and wanderers all passed through its harbors, bringing with them beliefs from Greece, Persia, Thrace, and even Egypt. It was a place where the gods of the Aegean mingled with the spirits of the steppes. The necropolis, stretching for kilometers outside the city walls, became a silent reflection of this cultural fusion. Over 15,000 graves have been discovered here, layered, intersecting, reused, and reshaped across the centuries. Unlike the orderly Greek cemeteries of Athens or Corinth, the tombs of Olbia are chaotic, sometimes stacked 3 or 4 levels deep, as if generations had deliberately chosen to bury their dead in the same sacred ground, returning to the earth that bound their souls together. Many graves contain objects that seem to come from entirely different worlds. A bronze mirror from Athens might rest beside a Scythian arrowhead. Amulets depicting the Egyptian god Anubis have been found alongside Greek coins meant to pay Charon, the ferryman of the underworld. Clay figurines show women with bird faces, snakes coiled around their arms, and spiral patterns carved into their robes, all motifs foreign to classical Greek art. Even the bodies are unsettling. Some lie face down, others are bound at the wrists. A few were buried in groups, their bones tangled together without coffins. Were they victims of plague sacrifice ritual? No answer fits every case. The deeper the excavators go, the more contradictions they find. But the true mystery of the Olbia Necropolis lies not in the bones nor the artifacts, it lies in the symbols. Scattered across stone slabs, urns, and walls are hundreds of markings that have resisted every attempt at translation. Some resemble early Greek letters, others look like stylized eyes, serpent spirals, or 6-pointed stars. None align perfectly with any known script, not Greek, not Scythian, not Thracian. They seem to belong to a language of symbols, not of words. Some archaeologists believe these signs were merely decorative, the random doodles of ancient artisans, but others suspect something far more profound, that they were part of a secret religious code, a sacred language used in funerary rituals meant to guide souls through the afterlife. The spirals, for instance, are repeated too often to be coincidence. In Greek Orphic traditions, the spiral represented the soul's journey, a path of descent into death and rebirth. The eye symbol, appearing on several tomb covers, might represent divine guardianship or the eternal gaze of the dead watching the living. And then there are the star symbols, particularly the 6-pointed one. Though often associated today with later traditions, its presence here predates those by over 1,000 years. Some scholars think it marked the idea of cosmic harmony, the union of heaven and earth. Others whisper that it could signify the gate of return, the portal through which a purified soul would ascend back to the world of light. The most radical theory is that these symbols belong to a pre-Greek sacred script, perhaps inherited from the earliest inhabitants of the region, people who lived there long before the arrival of the Hellenic colonists. Olbia, they suggest, was not built on empty ground, but upon the ruins of an older sacred site, and the Greeks merely absorbed the local customs. The strange hybrid rituals and mixed burial styles seem to support this idea. If true, the Olbia Necropolis could preserve one of the last echoes of a forgotten civilization, one whose belief system was never written in words, but in symbols, lines, and geometry, a proto-script meant to be seen, not spoken. Some have even drawn comparisons to the Vinci symbols of the Balkans or the mysterious Phaistos disk of Crete, both examples of enigmatic writing that predate known alphabets. Modern scanning techniques have revealed something else, a pattern of magnetic anomalies under certain tombs. The readings suggest the presence of underground corridors and sealed chambers, some of which connect multiple graves. These may have served ritual purposes, perhaps allowing priests or initiates to perform ceremonies beneath the earth, closer to the realm of the dead. Intriguingly, the strongest magnetic distortions occur precisely where the densest clusters of mysterious symbols are found. Whether this is a geological coincidence or an intentional feature, perhaps the use of certain minerals in the burial process remains uncertain. But it deepens the sense that the necropolis was designed with a hidden cosmological order, one that followed principles no longer understood by modern minds. To the Greeks, death was a passage, not an end. They believed in guiding the soul with tokens, prayers, and written spells. But at Olbia, it seems that words themselves were not enough. The dead were surrounded by symbols, as if the afterlife could only be reached through the understanding of signs, a visual language meant for the soul, not for human comprehension. This idea resonates with later Orphic and Pythagorean traditions, where geometric forms and numerical patterns were seen as expressions of divine truth. Could Olbia have been one of the earliest centers of such esoteric thought, a crossroads where Eastern mysticism met Greek philosophy? Some archaeologists think the answer lies in a yet undiscovered chamber, perhaps a central crypt, that holds the key symbol repeated across the necropolis. Others fear that time and looting have already erased the secret forever. Today, the Olbia Necropolis remains one of archaeology's most stubborn riddles. Despite decades of research, no one has deciphered its carved marks. The stones remain silent, yet hauntingly expressive. When you walk through the site, the wind from the Black Sea seems to hum through the open tombs, carrying whispers that are neither Greek nor Scythian, but something far older. It is as if the dead of Olbia still speak, but in a language that humanity has forgotten how to hear. A language written not in ink or sound, but in form and symbol, one that once bridged life and death, matter and spirit. Perhaps one day, someone will recognize the pattern. Perhaps the spiral, the eye, and the star will reveal their meaning. Until then, the Olbia Necropolis stands as a message from the ancient world, carved in a code older than civilization itself, reminding us that even after thousands of years, the dead can still keep their secrets. Nestled in the heart of north-central Anatolia, Alaca Hoyuk stands as one of the most mysterious archaeological sites ever unearthed in Turkey. At first glance, it looks like an ancient ruin of stone walls, weathered gates, and broken relics. But beneath its surface lies something far greater, a royal necropolis, where ancient rulers were buried with treasures so advanced, so precise in craftsmanship, that modern scientists are still struggling to understand how they were made more than 4,500 years ago. If more than 4,500 years ago, the Hatti people could craft metal with such precision, were they merely a local civilization or remnants of an ancient knowledge long forgotten? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Archaeologists date the royal necropolis of Alaca Hoyuk to between 2500 and 2100 BCE, placing it firmly in the early Bronze Age, long before the rise of the powerful Hittite Empire. Yet what was discovered here suggests that the people of Alaca Hoyuk, often attributed to the mysterious Hatti civilization, possessed a mastery of metallurgy and engineering far ahead of their time. When excavations began in the early 20th century, teams led by Turkish archaeologists uncovered 13 richly furnished royal tombs, each belonging to what seemed to be local kings or high-ranking nobles. Inside these tombs lay the bodies of the dead, buried in fetal positions, surrounded by astonishing arrays of gold and bronze artifacts, crowns, diadems, sun discs, bull figurines, mirrors, and ceremonial weapons. These were not primitive objects hammered crudely by stone tools. They were elegant, symmetrical, mathematically precise creations, the work of artists and metallurgists with deep technical understanding. The level of refinement shocked researchers. The alloys used mostly copper, tin, bronze, sometimes mixed with small amounts of silver or arsenic, demonstrated a chemical consistency and purity that would not be rediscovered until thousands of years later. Some artifacts had surface finishing so smooth that they seemed machine-polished, yet no such technology existed in the 3rd millennium BCE. Others showed filigree and granulation techniques that require advanced temperature control and an understanding of melting points and metal bonding. How could such technology exist in an age that should have barely understood bronze casting? The question remains one of the most fascinating enigmas of early Anatolian archaeology. Even more puzzling were the sun discs' intricate circular emblems made of gold or copper, often featuring stylized rays, bulls, or stags. These discs were not merely decorations. They were ritual and cosmic symbols, possibly used in solar worship or funerary ceremonies. But their design also reflected geometrical and engineering precision. Each disc's rays were spaced evenly, and the thickness of the metal remained uniform throughout, suggesting careful mathematical planning and specialized tools. Some of the discs were even inlaid with minute details too small for the naked eye to appreciate without magnification, an achievement nearly impossible with Bronze Age equipment. When examined under microscopes, the joints and seams of these objects revealed micro-level soldering techniques, showing that the artisans of Alaca Hoyuk possessed remarkable manual dexterity and scientific intuition. Alongside these bronze and silver figurines of bulls and deer were found standing on small pedestals or attached to ceremonial staffs. Each animal was sculpted with lifelike posture and detailed anatomy, muscular tension, curved horns, textured fur, all rendered in metal. Some bulls carried solar discs between their horns, merging symbolism and engineering in a way that mirrored the deep spiritual beliefs of the Hatti people. The bull motif itself became a hallmark of Alaca Hoyuk's art, a fusion of sacred power and technical brilliance. In Hatti religion, the bull symbolized divine strength and fertility, the living vessel of cosmic force. To capture that in metal was to embody the essence of the gods themselves. These sculptures thus stood not merely as ornaments, but as bridges between humanity and divinity, created by metallurgists who were both craftsmen and priests. What makes these objects even more remarkable is the lack of any written record explaining how they were made. No inscriptions, no clay tablets, no workshop remnants. It is as if an entire industrial knowledge, smelting, casting, alloying, and decorating, suddenly appeared, reached perfection, and vanished without leaving a trace. This sudden emergence and disappearance of skill has led some researchers to describe the Hatti metallurgists as a lost scientific culture, one whose innovations may have inspired later civilizations, including the Hittites and Mycenaeans. One particularly baffling find was the discovery of pure tin bronze artifacts with a nearly perfect alloy ratio of 90% copper to 10% tin, a formula considered ideal for strength and malleability. But tin was not naturally available in Anatolia. The nearest sources were in Central Asia or Afghanistan. This means that the ancient artisans of Alaca Hoyuk had established long-distance trade networks, exchanging materials across thousands of kilometers, or else possessed local metallurgical secrets lost to history. Either scenario suggests an unexpected level of sophistication and global connection, for a culture existing around 2500 BCE. Moreover, metallurgical analysis has shown that certain objects from the necropolis were heat-treated in ways that harden their surfaces while keeping their cores soft, a process similar to modern tempering. Such control over metallurgy implies experimentation knowledge of temperature gradients and perhaps even primitive thermometers or visual color-based temperature gauges. In other words, the metallurgists of Alaca Hoyuk were scientists in spirit exploring the physical laws of matter long before formal science was born. Archaeologists also uncovered several ceremonial standards, long bronze poles, topped with figures of stags, bulls, or solar emblems. These were likely used in processions or funerals, their metallic surfaces gleaming under the sun. When polished, these standards would have reflected light brilliantly, producing dazzling visual effects that may have symbolized the passage between life and death, or the divine illumination of the soul. The craftsmanship was so fine that even today replicating them precisely by hand is nearly impossible without advanced tools. Such discoveries blur the boundaries between art, religion, and science. They raise the question, how much did the people of Alaca Hoyuk truly understand about chemistry, heat, and metal structure? Were they merely skilled artisans guided by tradition, or did they possess systematic empirical knowledge, a proto-science of metallurgy that predated written history? Adding to the mystery, the burial customs themselves suggest a deep spiritual philosophy. Each ruler was buried not as an individual, but as part of a cosmic design body curled like a newborn, facing east toward the rising sun, surrounded by the shining metals of gold and bronze, symbols of eternal rebirth. Around the graves were placed the remains of sacrificed animals, especially bulls and deer, believed to serve the ruler in the afterlife. The blend of spiritual symbolism and technical perfection in their artifacts reflects a society that saw no boundary between the sacred and the scientific. And yet, despite decades of study, the true identity of the Hatti metallurgists remains unknown. Their language vanished, their workshops disappeared, and their techniques have never been fully replicated. The royal necropolis of Alaca Hoyuk stands as a silent archive of genius, one that whispers of a time when early humans reached unexpected heights of creativity and science. Could it be that ancient Anatolia once hosted a forgotten brotherhood of master metallurgists, a civilization whose understanding of metals, heat, and art rivaled that of later empires? Or perhaps their brilliance was not the result of isolation, but of cross-cultural exchanges between Mesopotamia, the Caucasus, and the Aegean, forming a lost web of ancient innovation. Helike was once one of the most prosperous and respected cities of ancient Greece, the shining heart of the Achaean League, dedicated to the mighty god Poseidon. Its wealth, influence, and sacred status made it a beacon of civilization in the classical world. Yet one winter night in 373 BC, the earth beneath Helike opened, the sea rose in fury, and within moments, the entire city vanished beneath the waves. What caused this destruction? Was it divine punishment or an extraordinary geological event that the ancient world could not comprehend? Do you believe Helike's destruction was a divine punishment or just nature's unstoppable power? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Long before its destruction, Helike was known as a powerful and sacred city located in the region of Achaea near the Gulf of Corinth. Ancient writers such as Homer and Herodotus mentioned it as a place of prestige and wealth. Helike had its own colonies, minted coins, and maintained strong trade networks with nearby Greek states. At the heart of the city stood the grand temple of Poseidon Helikonios, the protector of sailors and the god of earthquakes. Pilgrims from all over Greece came to worship here, bringing offerings and gold to seek his blessing for safe voyages across the unpredictable seas. Ironically, it would be Poseidon himself, or rather, the geological forces that the Greeks attributed to him, that would one day reclaim the city in a terrifying act of nature. In the winter of 373 BC, Helic experienced a sequence of strange natural phenomena. Historical accounts describe a series of animal migrations, rats, snakes, dogs, and even insects fleeing the city en masse. The citizens, unaware of what these signs meant, ignored the omens. Then one night, without warning, a violent earthquake struck. Ancient sources like Strabo and Pausanias describe the event as a cataclysm that swallowed the city whole. Buildings collapsed instantly. The ground split open, and massive fissures appeared, dragging houses, temples, and people into the earth. Moments later, the sea itself rose a massive tsunami, triggered by the displacement of underwater sediment and tectonic activity. The waves swept over the ruins, erasing Helica completely. When morning came, the once great city was gone, replaced by a lagoon of dark, brackish water. For centuries, Helic's disappearance was shrouded in myth. But modern geology has revealed the true sequence of natural events that led to its destruction. The region of Achaea lies on the Helic fault part of the complex Hellenic arc, a tectonic boundary where the African plate slowly moves beneath the Eurasian plate. This area is one of the most seismically active zones in Europe. It is prone to both subduction earthquakes and liquefaction events, where saturated soil behaves like a liquid under extreme shaking. During the quake of 323 BC, liquefaction likely caused the city's foundations to collapse as the earth turned to mud beneath it. Simultaneously, the earthquake triggered a massive underwater landslide in the nearby Corinth Gulf. This sudden displacement of sediment pushed water upward, creating a powerful tsunami wave that inundated the coastline. In a single night, Helice was both swallowed by the earth and drowned by the sea, a double catastrophe that few ancient settlements could survive. For almost 2,000 years, Helice was thought to be a myth, another lost city like Atlantis. Ancient travelers even claimed they could see its ruins shimmering under the sea. But it wasn't until the late 20th century that science began to uncover the truth. In the 1980s, the Helica project, led by Greek archaeologists Dora Katsonopoulou and Steven Sota, began extensive geological and archaeological surveys in the region. Using ground-penetrating radar sediment analysis and aerial photography, they identified layers of marine sediment and collapsed foundations buried several meters below the surface, proof of sudden subsidence. By the early 2000s, excavations near the modern village of Nikolaica uncovered streets, pottery walls, coins bearing the image of Poseidon, and even a small temple perfectly preserved in clay. Carbon dating and stratigraphic evidence confirmed that these layers corresponded to the 4th century BC, matching the historical date of Helic's destruction. Further studies of microfossils, tiny shells of marine organisms found within the soil, proved that the site had indeed been flooded by seawater, not a river or lake. This meant that a tsunami had truly engulfed the area, validating ancient eyewitness accounts for the first time through hard science. Plato wrote his dialogues Timaeus and Critias just a few years after Helice's destruction. He spoke of a great advanced civilization that angered the gods and was swallowed by the sea in a single night. Many scholars now believe that Plato's story of Atlantis may have been inspired directly by Helice's demise, an event so shocking that it echoed across the Greek world. Helice became the embodiment of human hubris before nature, a reminder that no city, no matter how rich or pious, can stand against the unstoppable forces beneath the Earth's crust. What makes Halyk so scientifically valuable is not only its tragedy, but also its preservation. Because the city was buried under fine marine silt and mud almost instantly, it became a natural time capsule. The ruins remain in astonishing condition. Pottery still intact, walls still standing, and streets traceable. This preservation allows researchers to study ancient Greek urban planning metallurgy and daily life frozen in time. It provides insight into how an ancient community responded unsuccessfully to the early warning signs of a geological catastrophe. Halyk's story transcends its historical moment. It stands as a warning for modern civilizations built on fault lines and coastal plains. The same natural mechanisms that destroyed Halyk's subduction, liquefaction, and tsunami waves still threaten cities like San Francisco, Tokyo, or Istanbul today. Even now, the Corinth Gulf region continues to experience frequent tremors, small earthquakes, and ground deformation. What happened once could happen again, and Halyk's ruins silently remind humanity of our fragile balance with the planet we inhabit. Today, visitors to the Halyk archaeological site can walk among the remains of what was once the pride of ancient Achaea. The silence is haunting. The ground still smells faintly of the sea. Here science and myth converge, a drowned city resurrected through excavation, a story once dismissed as legend, now confirmed by geology. The tragedy of Halyk shows that myths often carry the memory of real events encoded in ancient language, and beneath the layers of mud and time, we discover not just ruins, but the enduring truth that the Earth itself remembers everything. Hidden beneath the picturesque medieval town of Orvieto, perched high upon a volcanic plateau in central Italy, lies one of Europe's most enigmatic underground worlds. A sprawling labyrinth of tunnels, shafts, stairways, and chambers carved directly into the soft, volcanic rock known as tuffo. To the visitor, strolling above the city seems quiet and ancient, full of cobbled streets and stone houses bathed in golden light. But beneath those stones exists another Orvieto, darker, older, and far stranger than the one we know. Archaeologists call it Orvieto Underground, a network extending over 1,200 interconnected cavities stretching for miles beneath the surface. For centuries, these hidden corridors have held their secrets close, whispering faintly of rituals, survival, and knowledge long lost to time. If you were allowed to explore one of Orvieto's untouched tunnels, what do you think you would find? First traces of ancient engineering or evidence of a forgotten ritual? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The story of these chambers begins with the mysterious Etruscans, the pre-Roman civilization that flourished in central Italy nearly 3 millennia ago. They were master builders, engineers, and astronomers. Yet much of their culture remains shrouded in mystery, as their language has never been fully deciphered. It was they who first began to carve into the Tuffo Plateau, creating openings that later generations would expand and reuse. The precision of their work is extraordinary: walls cut clean and symmetrical arches shaped perfectly by hand, and shafts plunging straight down into the rock. Even with primitive bronze tools, they somehow created an underground city that has survived earthquakes, wars, and centuries of erosion. Many of the passages show signs of later adaptation. During medieval times, residents dug deeper, turning the ancient tunnels into workshops, wine cellars, olive oil presses, and pigeon lofts. Archaeologists have found evidence of entire underground industries, millstones, olive presses, stables, and storehouses carved from solid stone. It was a world of perpetual twilight, where candles flickered against moist walls and the sound of dripping water echoed through narrow corridors. Beneath nearly every house in Orvieto lies a forgotten door or stairway leading into this buried past. Yet for all that has been uncovered, the most haunting question remains unanswered. Why was such a vast network built in the first place? This question, the true purpose of the underground, has perplexed researchers for decades. Some believe the earliest chambers were designed as reservoirs, built to capture and store water from underground springs. The city, after all, sits atop a high plateau without rivers, and survival would have depended on a reliable water supply. Others suggest that the labyrinth served as a system of escape routes or sanctuaries during times of war, a secret refuge for those fleeing invasion. But certain discoveries seem to defy such practical explanations. Deep within the oldest sections of the complex, archaeologists have uncovered walls covered with carved symbols, suns, crosses, spirals, and markings unlike any known Etruscan script. In several chambers, they found symmetrical niches and circular alcoves that appear deliberately arranged as though to hold sacred objects or idols. Some spaces contain blackened stone altars, traces of burnt offerings, and bones of small animals, evidence that rituals of fire and sacrifice may have once taken place here. These discoveries have led to a far more intriguing hypothesis that beneath Orvieto lies not merely an infrastructure for survival, but a sacred domain, an underground temple network where the Etruscans conducted spiritual ceremonies hidden from the eyes of the world above. In ancient cultures, the underworld was often considered a place of rebirth and transformation, a symbolic gateway between the mortal world and the divine. The Etruscans, whose religion revolved around signs, omens, and communication with gods, may have carved these chambers as sanctuaries to commune with the forces of the earth itself. Some scholars even point out that the layout of certain tunnels aligns with astronomical directions, suggesting a cosmic or ceremonial purpose, like an underground reflection of the heavens. Adding to the mystery, several of the deeper corridors follow strict geometric proportions. Some form near-perfect triangles or intersecting grids that appear mathematically calculated. It is difficult to believe such precision could have been achieved without advanced knowledge of geometry or surveying tools. This has fueled speculation that the Etruscans, or perhaps an even older culture predating them, possessed a level of architectural sophistication far beyond what history credits them for. Could these tunnels have been part of a network designed for energy resonance or communication? Orvieto's chambers seem to hum faintly with echoes, as though the stone itself remembers every sound ever made within it. The enigma deepens when we consider the legends surrounding Orvieto. Some medieval chronicles speak of forbidden catacombs beneath the cathedral tunnels that were sealed by the church to prevent entry into pagan sanctuaries. Local stories tell of passages so deep that explorers who ventured down never returned, and of rooms where candles would extinguish themselves as if the air refused to support flame. Even today, portions of the network remain closed to the public officially for safety reasons, though rumors persist of discoveries too controversial to announce. Ancient artifacts, strange engravings, and perhaps entire chambers still filled with relics of a forgotten faith. When archaeologists attempted to map the labyrinth, they were astonished by its scale. Each tunnel seemed to connect to another, looping and spiraling, often directly beneath significant landmarks above the cathedral, the town square, and the old Etruscan walls. The pattern was too deliberate to be random. Some researchers now believe that the entire plateau of Orvieto may have been planned as a sacred complex, where what was above mirrored what was below. The city itself, they argue, may have been built upon spiritual geometry, an ancient concept linking heaven, earth, and the underworld in perfect harmony. Still, for all the hypotheses, no single theory explains it all. How could a civilization over 2,500 years ago have possessed the time, labor, and knowledge to carve thousands of cubic meters of stone for a purpose that remains obscure? Why are there no surviving records describing such monumental effort? And why do the tunnels continue far beyond the city limits, disappearing into sealed walls or unexplored depths? Some modern researchers suggest the Etruscans may have inherited the chambers from an even older culture, one that vanished before written history began. If true, then Orvieto could represent one of the last remaining traces of a pre-Etruscan civilization, a civilization whose only legacy is a silent city beneath the ground. Stepping into Orvieto underground feels like walking through time itself. The air grows colder, the light fades, and the dripping water echoes like footsteps from the past. In the dim glow, carvings emerge, faces spirals, crosses, traces of humanity, blurred by time, half real, half legend. The greatest mystery of Orvieto may lie in its very depths, where humanity reaches the limits of understanding. Whether it was a reservoir, a refuge, or an ancient temple, it stands as proof of mankind's desire to transcend its boundaries. Now the labyrinth sleeps in silence, preserving forgotten dreams, while archaeologists continue searching for answers that may forever remain buried beneath the ancient stone. Beneath the crystal waters of southern Laconia, Greece, lies one of humanity's most astonishing archaeological enigmas. Pavlo Petri, a sunken city older than any other known submerged settlement on Earth. Its ruins, stretching quietly along the seabed, tell a story not just of ancient brilliance, but of a catastrophic mystery that still defies modern explanation. Scholars have called it the Atlantis of reality, for Pavlo Petri is more than a ruin. It is a mirror reflecting the fragility of human civilization against the untamed forces of the planet itself. Do you believe Pavlo Petri's disappearance was purely a natural disaster, or could there be truths about its fall that modern science has yet to uncover? Share your thoughts below. Discovered in 1967 and later surveyed in detail by underwater archaeologist Pavlo Petri, is estimated to date back to around 2800 BCE, the early Bronze Age, long before the rise of classical Greece. This makes it the oldest known underwater city in the world, older even than most of Egypt's pyramids. Beneath only 3 to 4 meters of calm water, an entire urban landscape lies preserved. Streets, houses, courtyards, public squares, tombs, and drainage systems. Every stone remains almost exactly where it was when the city sank, creating the eerie illusion that time itself has stopped. The preservation is so remarkable that researchers can literally trace the paths ancient people once walked. Unlike fragmentary underwater sites elsewhere, Pavlo Petri is a complete city, meticulously planned and highly organized, suggesting a community with advanced social and architectural understanding. What astonished archaeologists most was not just the age of the site, but its sophistication. Pavlo Petri displays urban planning, centuries ahead of its time. Its stone-built houses often feature multiple rooms and central courtyards, an early hint of the architectural style that would later dominate ancient Greece. The city's infrastructure included a system of freshwater channels and possibly even sewage management, an incredible technological achievement for its era. There are wide streets lined with residential blocks and open plazas, evidence of social organization and community life. The presence of large paved areas suggests communal or administrative functions, perhaps markets, storage depots, or meeting spaces for civic gatherings. Artifacts discovered from the site, pottery, figurines, and everyday utensils reveal connections to the Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations, indicating Pavlo Petri may have been a crucial node in the trade networks of the ancient Aegean Sea. Pavlo Petri was not an isolated village. It was a vibrant coastal hub, ideally positioned for maritime exchange. Archaeologists have found Mycenaean pottery, Cretan-style vessels, and imported items from Egypt and the Near East, revealing that its inhabitants were active traders who sailed across the Mediterranean. This city thrived at a time when sea trade was transforming human societies, when obsidian copper wine and olive oil flowed between islands and continents. Pavlo Petri's position along these routes likely made it an economic and cultural bridge, where ideas, technologies, and traditions converged. For a city over 5,000 years old, the evidence of international trade demonstrates a level of sophistication and connectivity few would have thought possible. Here lies the heart of Pavlo Petri's enigma. Around 1000 BCE, the entire city suddenly vanished beneath the sea. For millennia, it lay untouched, its name forgotten, its walls buried beneath silt and seagrass. But what force could have erased an entire city, a flourishing hub of trade and culture, so completely and so suddenly? Geologists have proposed that a series of powerful earthquakes, likely triggered by tectonic movements along the Hellenic Arc, caused rapid subsidence of the coastal landmass. The Peloponnesian region is one of the most seismically active zones in Europe, and throughout antiquity, devastating quakes were recorded in nearby areas. It is plausible that a violent seismic event fractured the seabed, collapsing parts of the coast and dragging Pavlo Petri into the depths. Others suggest tsunamis generated by undersea quakes or volcanic eruptions from the nearby Aegean islands, possibly Thera, Santorini, could have overwhelmed the low-lying shoreline. A wall of water several meters high would have been enough to devastate the fragile coastal foundations and sweep the settlement away. However, there remains something unsettling about the precision of its preservation. If Pavlo Petri had been violently destroyed, why are its streets and walls so intact? Why do the remains not bear the chaotic scars of a natural catastrophe? Could the submergence have been a slower process? Centuries of gradual land subsidence, rising sea levels, and shifting tides quietly consuming the city. This uncertainty fuels one of the greatest mysteries in maritime archaeology. Some researchers even speculate that Pavlo Petri represents a larger network of coastal settlements, lost during the same period, a chain of cities gradually reclaimed by the sea as the Earth's climate changed after the Ice Age. In this sense, Pavlo Petri becomes not just a singular tragedy, but a symbol of a global pattern of disappearance, one that reshaped human geography forever. The story of Pavlo Petri has long invited comparison with Plato's tale of Atlantis, the legendary island civilization that sank beneath the ocean in a single day and night. While scholars dismiss any direct connection, the parallels are impossible to ignore. An advanced coastal society suddenly destroyed and submerged by forces of nature. What if Pavlo Petri was one of many Atlantis-like cities, real places whose destruction inspired myths of lost continents? Could it be that humanity's collective memory of such catastrophes evolved into the legends we still tell today? The question remains open, but the emotional power of the comparison is undeniable. Pavlo Petri reminds us that every myth has its roots in truth, in the trauma of civilizations erased by water. For centuries, Pavlo Petri lay forgotten, hidden beneath the shallow waves near the modern village of Elafonisos. It wasn't until 1967, when British archaeologist Nicholas Fleming identified the site, that its story began to surface again. Since then, cutting-edge technology has transformed our understanding of the site. In 2009, a joint project between the University of Nottingham and the Greek Ministry of Culture used 3D sonar mapping photogrammetry and underwater laser scanning to reconstruct the city in stunning detail. Every wall path and artifact was digitally recorded, allowing researchers to virtually walk through the ancient city in real time. This project made Pavlo Petri the first ancient underwater city ever fully modeled in 3D, creating a permanent digital archive of a world lost to the sea. Through virtual reality, scientists and even the public can now explore its streets, offering a new kind of immortality to a civilization that nature once erased. Even with advanced mapping, vast portions of Pavlo Petri remain unexplored. Layers of sediment conceal what could be temples, workshops, or additional harbor structures. Every dive reveals something new, a fragment of pottery, a piece of architecture, a doorway leading nowhere. Some researchers believe that beneath the visible ruins lies an even older settlement, perhaps dating back to Neolithic times before 3500 BCE. If true, this would push the city's origins thousands of years earlier, rewriting what we know about early urban life in the Aegean. The possibility is both thrilling and daunting that Pavlo Petri might not just be the oldest underwater city, but the first true city humanity ever built. Pavlo Petri stands as a silent testament to the fragile boundary between civilization and nature. It shows that even the most advanced societies can vanish overnight, not by war, but by the unpredictable power of the earth. 5,000 years later, its stones still whisper beneath the waves, reminding us that human achievement and loss have always walked hand in hand. If Pavlo Petri, with its technology, architecture, and maritime power, could vanish so completely, what does that say about us today? As rising sea levels threaten modern coastlines, its silent ruins serve as both warning and prophecy. History, after all, has a way of repeating itself. When Howard Carter first peered into the dimly lit chamber of Tutankhamun's tomb in November 1922, he saw wonderful things, glittering treasures untouched for more than 3,000 years. Yet even after a century of research, the story of Tutankhamun's tomb remains incomplete. Behind its painted walls, many Egyptologists believe lies an unopened chamber, a hidden world, possibly holding the final secrets of Egypt's most enigmatic dynasty. But the true fascination of this mystery doesn't merely rest on what might lie beyond those sealed walls. It lies in the architecture itself, the way the tomb seems to conceal its own truth through layers of hidden design, coded decoration, and deceptive craftsmanship. Tutankhamun's resting place is not simply a burial site. It is an architectural enigma built to disguise, protect, and perhaps mislead. If you were given the chance to open the hidden wall inside Tutankhamun's tomb, would you dare to uncover what lies beyond, or would you leave it sealed forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When Carter uncovered the 4 rooms of Tutankhamun's tomb, the antechamber, annex, burial chamber, and treasury, scholars were immediately struck by its unusual proportions. It was much smaller than any royal tomb found in the Valley of the Kings. Pharaohs were typically buried in long, grand corridors descending into the cliffs, decorated with celestial texts and vast halls. But Tutankhamun's tomb seemed cramped, almost improvised, as if designed for someone else. The uneven symmetry of its chambers, the sharp angles, and the compressed design gave birth to a powerful hypothesis: Tutankhamun may have been buried in a tomb originally built for a queen. The evidence supporting this idea grows stronger. The deeper one looks into its art and architecture. The most compelling evidence for an unopened chamber lies not beneath the floor or behind the gold coffin, but within the very texture of the plaster and paint that covers the walls of the burial chamber. On the north and west walls, radar scans and thermal imaging have detected subtle irregularities, faint, linear discontinuities, invisible to the naked eye, but suggestive of doorways sealed and painted over. More strikingly, Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves observes something astonishing. The decorative motifs on these walls shift in style and proportion, as if the painters had extended the mural hastily to conceal a hidden entrance. The north wall, for example, features scenes of Tutankhamun's funeral procession, and the moment he joins the gods, yet one section of the background pigment shows a slightly different shade of yellow ochre. The hieroglyphic outlines in that area are also thinner, more delicate, consistent with artistic techniques used earlier in the Amarna period, when Queen Nefertiti reigned beside Akhenaten. This subtle inconsistency has led some to argue that the wall was originally part of Nefertiti's tomb, later repurposed and overpainted to fit the burial of her stepson. Even the thickness of the plaster tells a story. Using microimaging, researchers discovered that the northern wall's plaster layer is thicker and uneven, suggesting an effort to hide a recessed doorway behind it. This would not have been unusual. Egyptian tomb builders were masters of optical illusion, capable of erasing entire corridors by sealing them seamlessly under painted limestone dust. Ancient Egyptian funerary architecture was designed not just for beauty, but for spiritual protection. Every brushstroke carried magical weight. Concealing a passage was an act of divine preservation, ensuring the pharaoh's eternal journey remained undisturbed. In Tutankhamun's tomb, the artistic team employed symbolic deception, vibrant colors, and carefully chosen iconography that both celebrated and obscured. The figures of Osiris, Anubis, and Ra on the north wall seem to guard something beyond, positioned as sentinels before a sacred threshold. Moreover, the tomb's layout mirrors the traditional pattern of a queen's tomb, rotated east-west instead of the male-oriented north-south alignment. Such inversion, together with the delicate Amarna-style art, supports the notion that Tutankhamun's chamber was carved into an existing royal burial, perhaps that of the vanished Nefertiti. If true, her hidden chamber might still lie beyond that painted veil, preserved for over 3,000 years in absolute darkness. From 2015 to 2018, teams from Japan, Italy, and Egypt used ground-penetrating radar and thermal sensors to scan behind the north and west walls. The results were tantalizing but inconclusive. Some readings indicated voids and metallic reflections consistent with hidden spaces or artifacts. Others found no such anomalies, suggesting natural irregularities in the bedrock. These conflicting findings have divided the scientific community. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities halted further drilling to protect the tomb's fragile surfaces, its paint flakes at the slightest vibration. Still, the scans revived global fascination with the possibility that one of history's most extraordinary secrets lies mere inches away from discovery. What makes this debate more compelling is that the ancient architects seemed to anticipate it. The walls of Tutankhamun's chamber were coated with a layer of fine plaster so thin and smooth it behaves like stone under light, effectively blinding even modern instruments. It's as though the artisans of the 14th century BCE built their deception not just for grave robbers, but for us thousands of years later. Even without uncovering another chamber, the tomb's existing decoration remains a masterpiece of symbolic architecture. The alignment of motifs, the direction of the figures, and the placement of the gods create a metaphysical map of rebirth. Every inch of the burial chamber tells a dual story, one for the living, visible, and celebratory, and another for the dead, hidden beneath layers of paint, geometry, and coded iconography. Tutankhamun's artisans were architects of illusion, creating walls that seemed to end, yet continued invisibly into the afterlife. This delicate balance between revelation and concealment is what makes Tutankhamun's tomb so haunting. It wasn't just meant to hold a body, it was designed to disappear into itself, to turn death into mystery and architecture into eternity. Today, the debate continues. Should we open the walls to uncover the truth or preserve the tomb exactly as it has survived? Scientists fear that even minor drilling could destroy priceless pigments or release microclimatic shifts that accelerate decay. But curiosity remains unstoppable. Every generation of archaeologists feels the pull of the unknown, the call of that hidden chamber. If the sealed room truly exists, and if it indeed belongs to Nefertiti, its discovery would rewrite not just Egyptian history, but the entire narrative of royal succession after Akhenaten's revolutionary reign. Perhaps the ancient builders knew that their greatest power lay not in gold or monuments, but in mystery itself. The tomb of Tutankhamun was crafted as a paradox, to preserve and to conceal, to honor and to mislead. Whether or not the unopened chamber is ever found, it has already succeeded in its purpose. It has turned silence into legend plaster, into prophecy and architecture, into a form of eternal storytelling. The true brilliance of Tutankhamun's tomb is that it still speaks not through words, but through the quiet perfection of its hidden design. Deep beneath the heart of Mexico, where the remnants of the Aztec civilization still whisper stories through ruins and relics, archaeologists unearthed something unlike any artifact ever found: small clay instruments shaped like skulls, each capable of producing one of the most disturbing sounds ever heard by human ears. They are called death whistles, and to this day, they remain one of the most chilling mysteries of the Aztec world. At first glance, they look like ceremonial trinkets, small effigies molded in the likeness of the dead, sometimes stylized with intricate symbols. Yet when air passes through them, the illusion of simplicity vanishes. The whistle releases an ear-splitting shriek, not musical, but human, filled with pain, terror, and despair. Researchers who heard it for the first time described the sensation as hearing a chorus of tortured souls. Even through modern speakers, its frequency can make one's spine crawl. It's not a mere sound, it's an emotional weapon. What do you think the terrifying sound of the death whistle was meant for? To spread fear on the battlefield, or to open the gateway for souls to the afterlife? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The origins of the Aztec death whistles trace back to the post-classic period of Mesoamerica, around the 14th to 16th centuries. Dozens have been found buried, with warriors, priests, and victims of sacrifice, particularly around Tlatelolco and Teotihuacan. Many are shaped like skulls or skeletal figures, symbols of Mictlantecutli, the god of death. While their spiritual or ritual purpose remains debated, one thing is certain: these were not ordinary flutes. Their internal engineering, the hidden labyrinth inside each whistle, represents a level of acoustic sophistication that defies everything we thought we knew about Aztec technology. The true enigma of the Aztec death whistle lies not in its outward appearance, but within, in the invisible labyrinth of air and resonance carved inside its clay body. Unlike ordinary flutes, which rely on a single cavity to produce smooth and harmonious tones, each death whistle hides two or more resonating chambers connected through narrow, twisting tunnels. When air is blown into the mouthpiece, it doesn't flow straight through. Instead, it is forced to collide, split, and whirl violently within these internal passages, producing a chaotic blend of pressure waves. The result is not music, but organized chaos, an acoustic illusion so complex that it resembles a crowd of people screaming at once. This eerie distortion occurs because the whistle's internal structure generates non-linear turbulence, similar to the irregular airflow inside the human throat during a real scream. Modern neuroscience confirms that such frequencies directly trigger the amygdala, the part of our brain responsible for fear and survival instincts. In other words, the Aztecs unintentionally or perhaps deliberately built a psychological weapon centuries before the science of acoustics even existed. To understand how advanced this design was, modern researchers have used CT scanning and 3D printing to recreate the instruments layer by layer. Each replica revealed something astonishing. No two whistles are the same. The internal geometry varies minutely. Some contain spiral-shaped chambers, others have domed cavities or knife-edged ridges. These subtle variations change the air's vibration pattern, giving each whistle its own voice. Some moan like the wind through a tomb. Others shriek with a metallic, piercing cry that can freeze the blood. Such deliberate control of resonance and airflow shows that the Aztec craftsmen possessed an intuitive understanding of psychoacoustics long before such a term existed. They did not merely build instruments, they sculpted fear itself, turning sound into emotion and clay into a vessel for terror. Each death whistle stands as both a technological marvel and a haunting reminder that even without written science, ancient minds could master the physics of sound to touch the deepest corners of the human soul. Imagine the scene: hundreds of Aztec warriors preparing for battle. As the enemy approaches, they raise their whistles to their lips. A storm of unearthly screams echoes across the valley. To those who had never heard it before, it would have sounded like the gates of the underworld opening, the dead themselves crying out. It's no wonder Spanish conquistadors described Aztec rituals as filled with terrible noises. These weren't random sounds, they were deliberate engineered to shatter morale and invoke the power of death itself. But beyond the battlefield, the whistles may have held spiritual and cosmic significance. The Aztecs believed sound could open pathways between worlds. In funeral rites, the death whistle might have symbolized the departing soul's final breath, a sonic key unlocking the gates of Mictlan, the afterlife. Some whistles were found clutched in the hands of sacrificial victims, perhaps blown in their last moments to announce their arrival to the gods. This act was both terrifying and sacred, a ritual of transcendence, carried by the vibration of air and bone. From a modern perspective, what's most fascinating is how these instruments challenge our assumptions about primitive technology. For centuries, Western scholars underestimated pre-Columbian civilizations, assuming their musical systems were simple and tribal. Yet the Aztec death whistle proves the opposite. It is an acoustic marvel, built with precision, purpose, and psychological depth. It shows that Aztec craftsmen possessed not only artistry, but also an intuitive grasp of fluid dynamics and sound pressure resonance concepts that wouldn't be formally described until modern physics. Acousticians studying these artifacts have discovered that the shape of the whistle's cavities causes non-linear turbulence, meaning the air inside doesn't vibrate uniformly. Instead, it splits into chaotic bursts, the same kind of unpredictable airflow that occurs in the human larynx during a scream. This phenomenon creates a waveform that the human ear interprets as emotionally charged, even frightening. In essence, the Aztecs engineered chaos and harnessed it. Some researchers propose that these whistles were part of a larger sonic landscape used in temple ceremonies or processions alongside drums, conch shells, and chanting. In the acoustics of Aztec architecture, particularly in the massive courtyards of Templo Mayor, The echoes would amplify the screams into a haunting reverberation that filled the air like a living presence. For a culture that revered death not as an end, but as a transformation, this sound may have represented the voice of the cosmos itself, a reminder that life and death are inseparable vibrations of the same eternal rhythm. And yet, for all our analysis, the true purpose of the death whistles remains elusive. No surviving Aztec codex explicitly mentions them. Were they sacred tools to guide the dead, psychological weapons of war, instruments to communicate with gods, or perhaps all at once? The mystery only deepens as more examples are uncovered, each with subtle differences in design, as if every whistle carried its maker's unique interpretation of death. Today, when one of these whistles is played in a museum or lab, it evokes a primal reaction. Even knowing its mechanical structure, listeners still feel a chill crawl through their bodies. The sound bypasses intellect and strikes directly at the nervous system, awakening a fear older than language itself, the fear of the unknown, of mortality, of what lies beyond. In that sense, the death whistle is not just an artifact of the Aztec Empire, it is a message from humanity's subconscious. It reminds us that long before the age of machines and science, our ancestors understood how sound could reach the deepest layers of the human psyche. They turned clay and breath into emotion, physics, into spirituality. And through their mastery of form and resonance, they created something far more than a musical instrument. They created the sound of fear itself. High in the rugged mountains of the North Caucasus, between the windswept valleys of Chechnya and Ingushetia, stand hundreds of ancient stone towers, tall, slender structures that pierce the fog like sentinels frozen in time. These are the stone towers of the Vainak, built by a people whose skill and purpose remain one of the most compelling enigmas of ancient architecture. Rising up to 20 or even 25 meters, these towers dominate the mountainous skyline, defying centuries of storms, earthquakes, and wars. They are found in clusters, sometimes entire villages of towers, standing on steep slopes or ridges where few modern builders would dare to construct. Their silhouettes, lit by the setting sun, form one of the most haunting and poetic images in all of the Caucasus. The mystery is not only who built them, but how they were built with such mathematical precision and endurance that even today, engineers struggle to explain their survival. If you were to guess what secret knowledge or technique allowed these medieval builders to achieve such precision and durability without modern tools, share your thoughts in the comments below. Perhaps the answer still lies hidden among the stones. The Vainak people, ancestors of today's Chechens and Ingush, are believed to have erected these towers between the 8th and 17th centuries, although some foundations may date back even further. They built them not as monuments of vanity, but as expressions of power, defense, and spirit. Some served as watchtowers, others as fortified homes, and a few as ritual or funerary structures. Yet many of them seem to have no clear functional logic, suggesting deeper symbolic or astronomical meaning. Despite their remote mountain locations, each tower is placed with strategic precision, often at vantage points that overlook entire valleys or pathways through the mountains. This suggests a complex system of communication and defense, perhaps even an early network of visual signals where light or fire could transmit warnings across great distances. Among all the mysteries surrounding the towers, the most extraordinary lies in their construction technique, a feat that defies both time and common logic. Each tower was built using dry stone masonry, meaning no mortar or binding material was used. The stones, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, were cut and fitted so perfectly that the joints are barely visible, even after centuries of erosion. Modern engineers, when studying these towers, often marvel at how the blocks interlock in a pattern of mechanical precision, creating an internal compression that strengthens the structure under its own weight. But the true puzzle is how these massive stones were lifted, shaped, and positioned at such great heights in an age with no cranes, pulleys, or iron tools of modern quality. At altitudes exceeding 2,000 meters, the builders worked under harsh conditions, yet the towers show no sign of improvisation or randomness, only consistency and accuracy. Archaeologists have found no remains of scaffolding, no writings, and no tools that could explain the level of craftsmanship. Some speculate that primitive cranes made of timber and rope might have been used, but the precision of the joints, especially near the top, seems far beyond what such crude methods could achieve. Others suggest that the builders possessed a unique understanding of balance, leverage, and geometric proportion passed down through generations, refined by empirical mastery rather than written science. One striking detail is the gradual inward tapering of the walls. Each level of stone is slightly recessed compared to the one below, forming a perfectly balanced conical geometry that distributes weight evenly downward. This gives the tower both stability and a graceful upward flow, a harmony of aesthetics and physics achieved centuries before modern structural theory. The walls are not uniform in texture or shape. Instead, the builders seem to have deliberately mixed rough, natural stone with precisely carved slabs, giving the illusion of randomness while ensuring perfect structural cohesion. The result is an appearance both wild and deliberate, as if nature itself conspired with human design. When scientists from Russian and European institutions conducted structural analyses, they discovered that the tension and compression lines of the towers mimic the same distribution seen in Gothic cathedrals built centuries later. Yet the Vanak towers were made by mountain clans, not architects or mathematicians. No one knows how they understood these load dynamics, nor how they managed to maintain such accuracy across hundreds of towers scattered across different regions. Even more astonishing is the resilience of these towers. Despite countless earthquakes and landslides in the Caucasus, many still stand perfectly upright, without any mortar to hold them together. When nearby modern buildings collapse, these medieval towers remain motionless, as if anchored by some forgotten science of weight and vibration absorption. Vanak legends tell of giant ancestors or demigods who could lift stones effortlessly, or of a master builder who taught the clans the secret of living stone. According to oral tradition, each tower was imbued with the spirit of its builder, which is why they have endured, because the stones themselves were bound by will, not by lime. Some anthropologists interpret this as poetic metaphor, the will symbolizing precise engineering discipline, but others argue that the myth may preserve memories of real ancient technologies, perhaps even pre-Vanak cultures with knowledge now lost. Certain ruins in remote valleys show construction styles even older than the Vanak towers, suggesting that the later builders might have copied or adapted from earlier civilizations. Beyond their structural marvel, the towers carry symbolic meaning. Many are aligned with cardinal directions or celestial events. Their tapering shape and pointed roofs resemble spiritual spires connecting earth and sky, the human and the divine. Scholars have compared their proportions to those found in Sumerian ziggurats or Egyptian obelisks, symbols of ascent and cosmic order. To the Vanak people, each tower represented the heart of a clan, both fortress and shrine. When a family line died out, the tower was said to die with them. Even today, Locals speak of these towers as stone souls, guardians of memory, watching over the valleys below. Archaeologists, engineers, and historians have spent decades studying the Vanak stone towers, yet the final answer remains a mysterious void. Radiocarbon analysis of wooden fragments found inside reveals that the towers were not built in a single era, but over multiple phases spanning centuries, suggesting a continuous transfer of construction knowledge across generations. Under microscopic examination, scientists discovered extremely precise carving marks, likely made with high-quality steel tools, a material rare in the Caucasus during the medieval period. This raises the question, did the Vanak people possess advanced metallurgical technology ahead of their time, or did they inherit it from a lost civilization? Moreover, acoustic experiments indicate that many tower interiors have unique resonance properties, implying they may have been used for religious rituals, chanting, or sound transmission. Yet no blueprints, symbols, or ancient texts describing how these structures were built have ever been found. Because the Vanak culture relied heavily on oral tradition, all such technical knowledge seems to have vanished with time and historical upheaval. Today, the towers stand only as stone phantoms, enduring witnesses to a brilliant intelligence that humanity has yet to decipher. Today, the stone towers of Vanak stand as UNESCO-recognized heritage sites, though many still lie in remote, dangerous areas. Time and conflict have claimed some, yet others continue to rise defiantly, their shadows marking the path of forgotten builders. They remind us that engineering is not merely about tools, but about the mind that wields them, about the intuition of balance, form, and endurance that can transcend time itself. The fact that these towers, built with bare hands and primitive instruments, can still outlast modern structures speaks to a knowledge system we have yet to rediscover. The stone towers of Vanak are not just relics of a bygone people. They are messages carved in stone, silently challenging us to understand. Were they fortresses, temples, observatories, or something more profound, a union of all three? Their builders may be gone, but the towers remain whispering across the centuries. You have machines, but do you have understanding? In the heart of the South Pacific, far from the monumental civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, or the Andes, lies the small island of Tonga Tapu, the main island of the Kingdom of Tonga. To a casual visitor, it is a place of turquoise waters, coral reefs, and coconut palms. But hidden, amid its quiet landscape, stands one of the most baffling megalithic structures of the Pacific world, Hayamonga, Maui, the burden of Maui. At first glance, it looks deceptively simple, 3 gigantic coral limestone blocks forming a gateway. Yet to archaeologists and engineers alike, this monument is an unsolved riddle that challenges our understanding of ancient Pacific societies. Do you believe the Hayamonga, Maui was just a royal monument, or a piece of lost ancient engineering beyond our understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Hayamonga, Maui Trilithon, rises nearly 5 meters high and weighs over 40 tons in total. The vertical pillars are each about 5.2 meters long and 1.5 meters wide, while the lintel atop them spans a similar length with remarkable precision. Unlike the rough-hewn monoliths seen elsewhere, these blocks are perfectly cut-leveled and joined, fitted into each other through precisely carved grooves that have survived centuries of salt air and tropical weather. What astounds researchers most is not merely the size of the stones, but the engineering mastery required to quarry, transport, and position them without metal tools, wheels, or beasts of burden. According to local legend, the gate was built by Maui, the demigod, who lifted the islands from the ocean floor. But to modern scholars, The deeper mystery lies not in myth, but in method. How did the builders of Tonga, an island culture with limited resources, achieve a feat that even with modern cranes would require careful calculation? The coral limestone of Tongatapu is notoriously brittle. To carve and move multi-ton blocks without fracturing them would demand a level of precision that suggests a deep empirical understanding of stone mechanics. One theory proposes that the stones were cut directly from reef formations and shaped with primitive stone tools. Yet the clean linear cuts visible on the Ha'amonga defy such simple explanations. Under magnification, the surfaces show no evidence of the chipping marks expected from handheld tools. Instead, the finish resembles abrasion or grinding, possibly using sand and water over long periods, an astonishingly patient process for a civilization that supposedly lacked complex technology. Even more puzzling is how these stones were transported. The quarry site, according to geological surveys, lies several kilometers from the monument's current position. Tonga's ancient inhabitants had no wheels, no draft animals, and no pulleys, so how were the 30-ton blocks moved across uneven terrain? Some researchers suggest that they might have used logs as rollers, yet Tongatapu's native flora lacks the kind of hardwood trees needed to bear such weight. Others speculate the use of sleds pulled over greased paths of coconut fiber and water, an idea supported by Polynesian oral traditions that speak of sliding stones across the earth like canoes on the sea. When it comes to erecting the structure, the enigma deepens. The lintel stone sits atop the two pillars with exact horizontal alignment, deviating less than a few centimeters across its span. To achieve this, the builders must have employed rudimentary surveying and leveling instruments or used astronomical alignments to guide placement. Several studies have found that the trilithon is aligned roughly with the position of the sunrise during the summer solstice, suggesting that Ha'amonga, Maui, might have functioned as an ancient solar calendar. At dawn on specific days, sunlight passes precisely through the opening, falling on a now eroded stone platform nearby, perhaps marking the start of agricultural or ceremonial seasons. This observation has led some researchers to compare Tongatapu's monument to Stonehenge in England and Nabta Playa in Egypt, sites that combined ritual and astronomical significance. Could the Ha'amonga Maui have been part of a broader shared ancient tradition of sky-watching architecture? Or did the Tongans isolated in the Pacific independently reach such an advanced level of cosmic geometry? Either possibility speaks volumes about their intellectual sophistication. The mystery extends beyond Ha'amonga Maui. Scattered around Tongatapu are other megalithic remains, stone burial mounds, platforms, and truncated pyramids known as langi. Many of these structures also use large coral blocks, cut and stacked with mathematical precision. The most famous, the Langi Maka Whakinanga, is believed to be the royal tomb of a Tui Tonga king. Here, the stones are arranged in perfect symmetry, forming steps and terraces that have not shifted even after centuries of earthquakes and storms. Their construction implies a systematic architectural language, a code of proportion, balance, and strength that must have been taught and passed down by specialized builders. Archaeologists have long associated these monuments with the Tui Tonga Empire, which flourished between the 10th and 16th centuries CE. At its height, the empire controlled vast stretches of the Pacific, including Samoa and parts of Fiji. Yet even within this advanced society, the Ha'amonga Maui stands apart, too sophisticated, too monumental for the tools known to exist in that period. Some speculate it may have predated the Tui Tonga dynasty, perhaps a remnant of an earlier and now lost culture that mastered stone long before recorded history began. Adding to the intrigue are recent geomagnetic studies conducted at the site. Scientists recorded subtle fluctuations in the local magnetic field, similar to those found at other megalithic sites worldwide from Stonehenge to the temples of Malta. While these could be natural anomalies, they have fueled fringe theories suggesting that Huamonga, a Maui, was built at a geophysical power point, a node of ancient energy known to the builders. Though speculative, such theories echo Polynesian cosmology, which viewed the land, sea, and stars as interconnected through invisible spiritual forces. For local Tongans, however, the monument's meaning is not just scientific, it is cultural and spiritual. The Huamonga, a Maui, symbolizes the unity between heaven-earth and the divine ancestors. Oral traditions describe it as a gateway through which kings and priests communicated with the gods, and even today, rituals and ceremonies are occasionally held in its shadow. The monument thus bridges two worlds, the tangible craftsmanship of stone and the intangible heritage of myth. What remains most extraordinary, though, is how the builders achieved all this with nothing more than human hands and intellect. There were no metal chisels, no cranes, no blueprints, just observation, experimentation, and generations of accumulated wisdom. The precision of the trilithon's assembly, its enduring stability, and its astronomical orientation suggest that ancient Tongans possessed a scientific understanding of geometry, physics, and time far more advanced than their contemporaries elsewhere in the Pacific. Modern archaeologists continue to study Huamonga, a Maui, using drones, 3D scanning, and ground-penetrating radar, hoping to uncover hidden foundations or tool marks. Yet despite technological progress, the monument stubbornly guards its secrets. Every measurement seems to reveal more intentionality than randomness, angles, proportions, and alignments too deliberate to be coincidence. Some have even proposed that the site was once part of a larger megalithic complex, now buried beneath centuries of sediment waiting to be rediscovered. In this sense, the megalithic ruins of Tonga Tapu are not merely remnants of stone, they are the surviving echoes of a lost Pacific science. They force us to reconsider what we think we know about the intellectual capacity of island civilizations. Far from being isolated or primitive, the builders of Tonga Tapu were engineers, astronomers, and artists of stone people who looked at the stars and carved their knowledge into coral blocks that would outlast empires. As the ocean winds whisper through the monoliths and the sun once again aligns perfectly between their towering arms, the Huamonga, a Maui, continues to perform its silent duty, a timekeeper, a guardian, a question. Was it truly the work of the Tui Tonga kings, or is it a memory carved in stone of a civilization, even older one, whose name has been lost to the waves? Perhaps the real mystery of Tonga Tapu is not how these stones were raised, but how much knowledge of the ancient world has quietly disappeared beneath the tides of time. Among the icy peaks of the Himalayas, stories speak of a place untouched by time, Shambhala, the hidden city of eternal light. For centuries, monks, explorers, and dreamers alike have whispered of this lost kingdom, said to lie beyond ordinary geography, protected by mountains, illusions, and spiritual barriers that only the pure of heart can cross. In Buddhist texts, Shambhala is described as a realm of enlightenment, ruled by benevolent kings who preserve the world's deepest wisdom until the age of darkness ends. But beyond myth and prayer, many have dared to ask a dangerous question. Could Shambhala be real? If a place like Shambhala truly exists, hidden somewhere among the snowy peaks of the Himalayas, visible only to those with a pure heart, do you believe you could ever find it? Or is Shambhala merely a symbol of an inner world where the human soul reaches enlightenment. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on this legend. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Western curiosity about Tibet reached its height. Travelers inspired by the ancient Kalachakra Tantra texts began to believe that Shambhala might be a hidden physical place buried in the heart of the Himalayas. Explorers, soldiers, and even secret societies set out determined to pierce the veil of mystery that had protected it for thousands of years. One of the earliest known seekers was Nicholas Roerich, a Russian painter, archaeologist, and mystic. Between 1925 and 1928, he led an ambitious expedition through India, Mongolia, and Tibet, claiming to follow ancient maps and local legends pointing toward a hidden valley of the masters. In his journals, Roerich described how villagers in remote Tibetan settlements spoke of a radiant kingdom hidden beyond impassable glaciers, a land where no sickness, no aging, no death exists. He wrote of strange encounters of monks who warned him to turn back, of lights dancing over mountain passes, and of a deep vibration in the air like chanting from the earth itself. To Roerich, these were not hallucinations, they were echoes of the invisible city signals from a world beyond human comprehension. In the 1930s, the legend of Shambhala attracted not only mystics and explorers, but also some of the darkest forces of the century, the Nazis. Under Heinrich Himmler, the Ahnenerbe organization was founded with the goal of tracing the pure Aryan origins and uncovering the supernatural knowledge they believed had once existed. To the Nazi leadership, Shambhala was no longer a mystical realm of enlightenment, but rather an ancient center of power, a place said to hold forces capable of altering the destiny of humankind. The most famous expedition was led by Ernst Schaefer in 1938, crossing the Himalayas into the high plateaus of Tibet. The team carried skull-measuring instruments, ancient maps, and letters of authorization from the German government. They believed that hidden among the icy peaks lay clues to a superior civilization, the supposed ancestors of the Aryan race. Along their journey, they collected bones, relics, and stories from Tibetan lamas who warned them Shambhala reveals itself only to those who come in peace, not to seekers of power. No tangible evidence was ever found, but the story left a lasting imprint on the Western imagination. From then on, Shambhala became not only a symbol of supreme wisdom, but also a mirror reflecting humanity's insatiable ambition, the desire to control even that which belongs to the realm of the spirit. For decades after the earliest expeditions, the legend of Shambhala did not fade. Instead, it became increasingly shrouded in the mist of modern science and speculation. Scholars and explorers began to shift their focus from religious faith to specific geographical hypotheses, seeking the real location of this city of light using technology and satellite imagery. Some claimed that Shambhala lay north of Mount Kailash, the sacred peak regarded as the axis of the world in Tibetan belief. Others believed it was hidden deep within China's Kunlun Mountains, or even beneath the Gobi Desert, where strange magnetic phenomena have long been reported. Ancient Tibetan texts mention the land of 1,000 lotus petals, a metaphorical description that many researchers believe could refer to perfectly circular valleys visible in satellite photos, formations too symmetrical to be natural. Some modern explorers, using terrain scanning technology and GPS, have discovered a series of sealed and unusually shaped valleys, where compasses malfunction and sounds echo unnaturally, matching almost exactly the accounts recorded by Nicholas Roerich nearly a century ago. Meanwhile, local people still speak of hidden entrances, caves that open only for moments at dawn, or fog-shrouded valleys that seem to shift their location with the seasons. According to legend, Only when humanity's collective spirit reaches perfect harmony will the gates of Shambhala open once again. Until that day, it remains invisible to greed and forever beyond the reach of the ordinary. But perhaps Shambhala was never meant to be found on a map. In the Kalachakra Tantra, it is written that Shambhala is within you, not outside, a state of mind, a plane of higher consciousness, accessible not through roads or compasses, but through meditation, compassion, and inner awakening. To Buddhist philosophy, every seeker's journey toward Shambhala is a reflection of their own quest for enlightenment. The snowy peaks represent obstacles of ego, the treacherous valleys symbolize fear, and the radiant city itself is the awakening of true wisdom. Maybe that's why so many expeditions failed, because they were looking outward when Shambhala was always meant to be found inward. Even today, locals in the Himalayas still speak in hushed tones about travelers who vanish without a trace. Some say they entered the valley of Shambhala, chosen by destiny, never to return. Others believe that modern discoveries, such as ancient cave systems beneath the Himalayas and unexplained magnetic anomalies, are proof that something truly exists beneath the snow. Satellite imagery has even revealed massive subterranean voids, possible remnants of forgotten civilizations or natural structures that once inspired the myth. Yet as science moves closer, the mystery seems only to deepen. Shambhala endures a bridge between myth and reality, between heaven and earth, between what we seek and what we already possess within. Whether it is a spiritual paradise, a lost city beneath the ice, or simply a metaphor for enlightenment, Shambhala continues to inspire. It reminds us that the greatest mysteries are never entirely lost, only hidden until we are ready to see them. In the words of an old Tibetan proverb, "He who finds Shambhala has already left the world behind."